Hello and welcome to stage 7B of the Tour de l'Avenir. We're into the final weekend of the Tour of the Future, and we are in the French Alps. We were yesterday. Today is a split stage. This morning we had stage 7A, an individual time trial of 11 kilometers, and that was won by our race leader, Matteo Riccicello. He took the stage in 31 minutes, 31 seconds. 39 seconds clear of David Pignazzoli and 45 seconds clear of Isaac Del Toro, the Mexican rider who took the stage yesterday. And that extends the lead of the young American who rides for the Israel Premier Tech team. The only rider in this field, as we've mentioned on numerous occasions, but I think it's worth restating, who's ridden a Grand Tour this year. Finished the Giro d'Italia. He now leads a relatively comfortable overall lead. Has a 1 minute and 4 seconds lead over David Pignazzoli and a 1 minute and 11 second lead over Isaac Del Toro, with the first Frenchman in fourth at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Today, as you can see, pretty grim conditions. Not super cold, luckily, about 17 or 18 degrees, but the rain has fallen to the extent that the proposed neutralised section, which the riders were supposed to descend, they came down in the vehicles, and now they've started the 69.6k climb, well, long drag, should I say, to Val Cenis. The finishing climb today, the Col du Mont Cenis, again way over 2,000 meters. Not as steep, not as brutal as the slopes that we saw yesterday on the Col de la Loze, which saw this field explode, detonated on the brutal steep slopes. A wonderful win, a maiden win in this race for Isaac Del Toro, one of the biggest wins of his career. Watch out for this young lad in the future, but he sits up there on the overall now, third at 1:11, and the bunch at the moment still all together. 62.7 k's to go, another very explosive stage on this main road. Coming up to the first categorized climb of the day, we have 3 categorized climbs today, the first of which is the Monte du Orel. That comes at 51.3 k's to go, so we've got about 11 k's to reach the top of that third category climb. But as you can see, the climb is on a long drag, not particularly steep. 2 k's at 6.8% is the percentage for that first climb of the day. Next up on the menu is the Monte du Associés, which is 6.5 k's at 6.2%. Then the road continues to rise, get up to 1,500 meters, the road drops again, and then we kick up to the climb at Val Cenis. And then once we pass through the finish, or the climb should I say, we have about 5 kilometers of gently undulating roads to the finish line. So not technically a mountaintop finish, but the climb of Val Cenis is 9.3 k's at 7%, so another stern test. Jens Decker is alongside me today. Jens, an explosive day today and a dominant performance in this morning's time trial by the young American Matteo Riccicello.
Yeah, he was surprisingly strong on that mountain time trial. Of course, we have seen him in the Giro already doing an incredible performance on that mountain time trial. But the gaps were maybe bigger than we would have expected. Up to 40 seconds to second place, that's a huge gap, given that those riders were basically able to follow him, and Del Toro even able to outsprint Riccicello yesterday on top of the climb. So pretty huge gaps, and the gap in the GC also going out now. Looks like it might be controllable for Riccicello, but I'm sure that he is going to be attacked, and as there are a lot of riders already attacking right now, although these are not our GC favourites at the moment attacking.
No, you wouldn't have thought the GC favourites would go just yet. Germany have been on the offensive, Great Britain too. Neither one of those countries has anybody inside the top 10. In fact, 10th place overall. One of the riders who's doing a lot of attacking on the slopes of the Col de la Loze. About halfway up, must have counted 7 or 8 stinging attacks. He eventually faded, but sits at the top 10, 10th place, should I say, at 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So as you were saying, Jens, this top 10 now spread over several minutes. 4 minutes, in fact, separate the top 10. So that's why I think we're seeing riders a little bit further down the classification trying their luck. There's a rider from Luxembourg in that blue jersey. Great Britain have dropped away as well from the GC. So unsurprisingly, riders who don't pose a threat are trying to get up the road now.
Yeah, this looks like it's Joshua Gallagher for the British team on that FDJ Lapierre bike. It's quite recognizable as the only rider from that team on the British team. But there's a lot of riders trying to attack at the moment, and it's very hard to get up the road at this stage. The road's quite wide. Everyone has access to trying to get up the road if they want to, and that's just leading to so many riders trying to follow these moves that there's no separation whatsoever.
Yep, another attack here by one of the riders from Ireland. They're big race favourites from Ireland, as you were alluding to. Not too sure exactly what the problem was, but Archie Ryan's been carrying a little bit of a knee injury, faded dramatically. In fact, was dropped from the front group quite early on the slopes yesterday, but one of his teammates is trying to go now. The Irish team down to three riders now. Kevin McCambridge, Archie Ryan and Jamie Meehan, the only three surviving members. Thankfully, the roads look like they're slightly drying here. The rain was falling on the descent, looks a little bit clearer. We might see a little bit of cloud as we get a bit higher up. Pretty low down at the moment, but we've got a long drag ahead. Remember, we climb up to 2,096 meters, so completely different climbing today, though not quite as savagely steep as yesterday. More of a long grind today, Jens.
Yeah, it's basically just all uphill. There are a couple of short descents in the middle, but it just keeps on rising. We've got the two categorized climbs, but off the first climb there is a descent that lasts about 1 kilometer, and the second climb is just sort of a false flat descent for a couple of kilometers before it starts rising again. It's not much more than just one long climb with varying gradients. So it's going to take a while before we reach the top of this. But yeah, it's 1,500 meters from the start to the finish in altitude gain. So over 70 kilometers, that's a pretty decent amount.
Yeah, even looking at stages in the Grand Tours, don't quite remember seeing a stage quite like this. Discounting the neutral, it is primarily uphill all the way, save for this little ridge that we crest about midway through. We lose a little bit of elevation, then pick up again. As again, we see another rider trying to go clear. 60 k's to go, 9 k's to the top of the first categorized climb. And as the action continues, I think it's worth just casting our minds back to what's happened this week. It's been an interesting race, an exciting race, unpredictable at times, save for yesterday where the cream, the race favourites, really did rise to the top. At a different stage winner every single day, and multiple different leaders in the race, of course, pulling on the coveted Maillot Jaune. The opening stage up in Brittany back on Monday, or Sunday should I say, was taken by Anders Foldager. He moved into the jersey. The next day was taken by Canada's Riley Pickard in a big bunch sprint. Mikhail Pomorski was the rider that moved into the jersey. There is the profile, and I think you know what I mean. Pretty much uphill all day, save for that little ridge where they lose a couple of 100 meters and then pick it all up again. So that's the profile that the riders face. Stage 3 saw the race finish in Vatin. That was a 25 kilometer team time trial taken up by Denmark, and Carl Frederick Bevort moved into the yellow jersey. The following day, a fine solo win, clips off the front of the peloton with about 4 k's to go. On a hill finish, it was Fabio Christian. Moving into the jersey on that day was Simon Dolby of Denmark. The next day was taken a fine solo win by the Spaniard Ivan Romeo. Simon Dolby staying in the Maillot Jaune. And then yesterday, as we just mentioned, the Queen stage of the Tour de l'Avenir, the 59th edition of this race, was taken in superb style by Isaac Del Toro of Mexico. And we're reliably informed he's the second rider from Mexico to take a win in the Tour de l'Avenir. And it was Mathieu Riticella that moved into the jersey. And this morning, the 11k time trial was taken by the American, rubber stamping his authority on this race so far with 2 stages to go. So that's the situation this week. The sun is starting to shine, which certainly be a little bit welcome. With no big descents today, that is a welcome relief though, isn't it? And these sorts of conditions in the Alps, Jens, for the reasons we discussed at length yesterday, the different abilities within this group, the different sets of experiences, I'm quite relieved they don't have to tackle any alpine descents today.
No, but that will all change tomorrow with the Col d'Iseran descent that we're facing. That's going to be a big one. But at the moment, just seeing those attacks flying left and right. Joshua Goliker from the British team is probably the most active rider at this stage. We just saw him move off the front. Small gap, got brought back. Now he's trying it again, but no separation until now. I think we're going to have to wait for that first climb, although the climb might not even be steep enough or long enough to create separation. So we'll just have to wait and see until something tangible develops. At the moment, it's just attacks from the peloton.
Yeah, lots of attacks. I'm not saying there's fresh legs, but there's clearly a keenness given the sort of stage we've got today. And because, although it is primarily uphill, we've got those 3 categorized climbs along the way, the climbing is completely different and will suit far more riders than the steep slopes we saw yesterday. Yesterday was where the true pure climbers came out to play, the thoroughbred general classification guys. But today, a little bit more punchy. And if you open up a gap before the final climb, this could be a day for the breakaway, especially if the Americans, the right combination goes clear and they want to ride on it.
Yeah, especially that final climb. It's a hard one, but it's not too hard for a lot of riders who can go uphill fairly well. I think yesterday we saw just an hour of effort of continuous effort. That's a huge huge climb, and today it's going to be, well, 10 kilometers at 7% roughly. That's doable for more riders anyway. Maybe not for everyone, but definitely for a bigger segment of riders, because yesterday it was just about who had the legs and who went uphill fastest. Today there is a lot more room for different riders to shine, and that's probably why so many riders want to get up the road. But at the same time, by doing that, by continuously attacking and dragging that first attacking phase out, that means that there is less time to increase the gap, and therefore also less chance that they'll actually stay away.
Exactly. Seen that more and more in modern racing, not just at the under-23 level, but the Tour de France, for example, the Giro d'Italia. Today we're going to see another Vuelta kick-off this evening. Of course, make sure you catch that on Eurosport, GCN Plus, Discovery Plus as well. But no, this momentum, as you say, just ultimately gives less opportunity, and it's not uncommon now for in the biggest races in the world, even the races like the Tour of Flanders, the big classics. We saw traditionally early breaks go, but quite often it's taking 50, 60, 70 kilometers plus before the elastic snaps, and the gap never goes out too much, and it compresses again, and we move into the final phase of racing, which ultimately gives a far more generally intense race altogether.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to slow down today, not much anyway. Maybe the peloton will let a group go at some stage, but I don't think it's happening right now. This is Lars Kaps for the Belgian team moving off the front on his own at the moment, which is not going to be an ideal situation for him. It's a long way to go on his own. I think he would have hoped for a couple more riders, but who knows, someone might jump across to him, although the riders trying to do that at the moment are just dragging the whole peloton along with them. At this point, I think it's going to be waiting until we hit that first climb and we go off this main road, see a couple hairpins, and it makes it just a lot easier to create some separation.
Yeah, it's, again, they are climbing. It's only about 4, 5, 6% here, probably less than that. So sitting in the wheels, there's a massive benefit. He is moving clear, but not opening too much of a lead, and this is going to come at a big cost. But saying that, it's got to be someone who starts an attack, and quite often if somebody goes clear, you might get 1 or 2 other riders just clipping across, little satellite moves doing, until you get a breakaway that ultimately coalesces and can become the break of the day. So doff of the cap to Lars Kaps for trying. It looks as if it's the Austrians now trying to bring this back together once more. So I do think, based on what we've seen so far, and Kaps has done the right thing, is looking around and saying, okay, there's no point in continuing with this, as it is Austria indeed, who try and surge again.
Yeah, still the attack's coming, but we're about a kilometer away from turning onto that narrow road up the climb. Well, it's not too narrow, but it's narrower than this road that we're going to see, because it's just so easy to latch on to a move at this point. Everyone's fairly fresh, although they do have that time trial of this morning in the legs, but everyone's fresh enough to stay on the wheels, and yeah, it's just going to be a little bit easier to just jump out of one of those hairpin bends and create some separation that way, because at this point everyone at the back of the peloton is just rolling along at a decent pace without having to work too much, while the riders at the front are really motoring to try to get away.
Yeah, this is essentially just a big long valley road. The Americans now moving through to the front. The first time we've seen the American team. They've still got their full complement, which is massively important for Matthew Riccicello. Although he enjoys a relatively comfortable lead at the top of the general classification, it's always nice to have the insurance policy and the assurance that you've got a big team around you. He's got Luke Lamberty, he's got Ian Lopez de Saint-Romain, Brodie McDonald, Artem Schmidt and Colby Simmons, an exceptionally capable team. They haven't had to do too much so far And actually, from Riccicello's point of view and the rest of the Americans, long may this continue, because this is absolutely perfect, isn't it? The general momentum of the racing, ticking off those kilometres and therefore neutralising to a degree any possibility of any endangerment getting up the road, because as we head deeper into the stage and the steep climb near the end, that's going to suit Riccicello, because he's clearly riding superbly.
Yeah, I think Riccicello, his goal is just going to be to get to the climb in a safe place with no one very dangerous up the road, and just with the favourites around him, he'll be able to control that, and the team is just going to have to do their best to control it at this point. I think there is going to be someone here for the US riding at the front and just keeping an eye on who goes up the road. They've only got maybe 15 to 20 riders to look for who are still relatively close on the GC. If that rider in question just manages to keep an eye on those riders, make sure no one really dangerous goes up the road, then this can continue for a long time, actually. It just prevents them from having to do all the work at the front. But we are now moving on to the climb, so slightly narrow road. This is the first point where there could be some real separation.
Yeah, it's only about 1,600 metres till we get to the top now. As you see, doesn't look as if anybody's been dropped just yet. That a long drag up the valley road, big main road, not posing too many problems, but on these sorts of climbs, as you can see, it's stretching out. They've got to watch these bends as well. Occasionally we see riders getting it wrong uphill on hairpins. A couple of riders going very wide, carrying a lot of pace, a lot of momentum into that hairpin, but they're well onto the climb of the Monte d'Orelle now. A little move from a rider from Luxembourg on the back of Slovenia, now starting to struggle a little bit on the back of this group, and almost coming to a halt on this tight hairpin here.
Yeah, and what that means is that the peloton is just stretching out through these bends. The riders at the back are hardly having to pedal too hard, and while at the front they're just sprinting out of these corners to try to get away. And that means that once over the top of this climb, we're almost definitely going to see some gaps when the speed increases into the descent. That descent is it's not long, it's not too hard, but the road is not too wide. It's got a couple difficult corners, so we'll have to watch out for that. At the moment, though, there's no real separation yet, so I think this could continue into the valley road that we see after this.
That certainly looks like that. Another rider just suffering on the back there. So Archie Ryan now takes things up. Still got that strapping to the left of his knee, clearly feeling a little bit better today than yesterday, and having slipped away from the general classification contention, might be hoping he can get a little bit of leeway. And there is a little split. One of the Czech riders is there, one of the riders from Israel too. There's an Italian and a Luxembourger also getting across. So Ryan checks the gap, a good little acceleration there, and the first couple of splits now starting to appear. And we've got about 900 metres now to the top of this climb, and this isn't good for the United States. One of their riders starting to struggle in the wake of the tempo being set on the front there. That looked like, I couldn't quite tell that was. It wasn't Lamperty, was it? But,
I think it might have been Artem Schmid, but that's really not a good sign, because he was riding with leg warmers, and that's always a telling sign that someone's not quite up to scratch on the day. It's not a great sign, because I think it's about 20 degrees in the valley there, so that's kind of weird. It's not great that he's already getting dropped now, but this move going off the front, first separation, but it's Alex Seyhard from Belgium trying to bring it back. We saw Archie Ryan there on the attack. He lost the GC yesterday, but it's understandable given the fact that he was off the bike for 5 months earlier this year with that knee injury. Only started training in May, I believe. So he just doesn't have the fitness yet for this 9-day stage race, which is understandable, but he's still a class rider. We'll see him next year in the World Tour.
Yep, running for EF Education. Has a look round, and these sorts of efforts as well. I mean, he's got nothing to lose. He's clearly riding well, but that test yesterday, there was no hiding place at all on the Col de la Loze. In fact, just to put it into perspective, the climb today to Val Cenis is equivalent in terms of distance and gradient to the first half of the Col de Loze before it got steep. As we see, another little group just falling away out the back here. Austria, Mexico represented. Looks like one of the sprinters there from the Israel squad as well, the Czech Republic, Germany. Also here too. No real surprise, because the pace is on at the front, but it isn't too far to the top now for these riders, for the front of the peloton anyway. We have about 400 or 500 metres. I think it's Colombia now getting involved, and 3 riders at the front yesterday. fell away near the end, but they were very active on the first part of the climb, but I think almost did a little bit too much, I think it's fair to say, Jens.
Yeah, their leader Pinzon definitely went a bit too often, tried to shake off the other riders by attacking, but had to pay for it later on the climb. There is a gap opening up there, about 12th place, I think. It's starting to open up, but that's not too big of a gap. I think we could see some riders taking some risks in the descent to get away, but it does look like it's sort of staying together, and then we're going to go back onto that big valley road soon, and at that point it's going to be difficult again to get away.
Yeah, the descent's not too long off this. In fact, we're on the valley road, really, aren't we? There's not much of a drop-off. There's a slightly steeper descent off the next climb, but that comes at 32 k's to go. So another 20 k's or so away from that, as Colombia continue to apply the pressure on the front. Just coming up to the King of the Mountains points now. 5, 3, 2 and 1 points on offer. And the man that's gone for it here is yesterday's winner, Isaac Del Toro, trying to secure that classification. He takes a look round, potentially hoping that the sprint isn't contested. It'd be great to head back towards the front because there are points on offer for a very important intermediate classification. But Del Toro, courtesy of that win, scoring 20 points. This is where it gets a little bit sketchy here. They've gone over the top. Very slippery here. So the motorbike has to shave a lot of speed off in that corner. And the rider's getting very close. Nervous times, but blue skies ahead, thank goodness. As we continue to focus on the chase, the pursuit for these riders to try and get back in contact again. They don't want to get dropped too early. The time gap still applies on these shorter stages, and given the pace we're riding at, that's one thing you don't want to do, is get detached too early on in the stage. No,
absolutely not. It's 25%. Just as yesterday we saw one rider outside of the time limit yesterday, and the same for this morning. There was also a rider outside of the time limit. That was 35% on the time trial, mountain time trial, which is quite a generous time limit, but still someone outside of the time limit. And today on this short kind of stage, if you get dropped right now, it's a long way to go. These riders still in a group, but we did see some riders dropping off even earlier, and they might be on their own out there, which is not going to be a fun day for them.
No, not at all. 50 k's primarily uphill. Safe for 5 k's. And we're looking back at highlights of the time trial. In fact, this is William Junior Lecerf. He currently sits in 8th place now at 3 minutes and 45 seconds. He did a good ride. It was a top 5 performance by the young Belgian, who was very active on the stage yesterday. 11.1 k's all uphill. But look how deep he's gone there. All the way to the line. Very deep indeed. And next up, this is Pellizzari, I think, or Piganzoli. Let's just double check. This is Pellizzari, should I say, of Italy. A good ride by this man as well. Ultimately, he was to finish second on the day, was Piganzoli. Stops the clock across the line. And this was the man that moved himself into the white jersey after that magnificent victory. Isaac Del Toro beating Riticello to the finish yesterday, and also performing well in the individual time trial. In fact, the time eventually for this young rider, who has a bright future. Big sprint at the end there, managed to find something special for that final surge. That was good enough on the day for 3rd place, an average speed of 20.455. And just going off was penultimate rider. It was a good time by this man as well. Only finished 39 seconds behind Riticello on the day for the Italians. So the Italians packing it up there in the general classification. Pellizzari and Piganzoli honouring that iconic blue jersey. And his first stint in the Maillot Jaune, the American rider for Israel Premier Tech in that beautiful jersey. I'm sure he understands the significance of this ride, but rode beautifully. It was the strongest by a fair margin. In the end, 39 seconds to the good in a time of 31 minutes, 31 seconds for Matthew Riticello to take the stage win. And there we go. Riticello took the win ahead of Piganzoli and Del Toro. Rondel, Pellizzari, Christian, Lopez, Lecerf, Grat and Pinzon. That was your top 10. But back to the racing, and we have here a significant sprint. Ryan is there, and a couple of riders from the Norwegian team. Italy are there as well. It looks like that is the second place rider, third place rider overall as well. Where is the yellow jersey? I cannot see him. This is exactly what Mathieu Riccielli wouldn't want.
Yeah, I think Del Toro is definitely there. It does also look like that's Spigonzoli, the second place rider overall. And the American team is nowhere to be found at this moment. So second and third place in the general classification up the road in a group of just under 20 riders with still almost 50 kilometers to go. So this is getting interesting. That must have just happened on that descent that we didn't quite see because we were looking at the images of the time trial. Just gonna check that number, but it is in fact Spigonzoli, and I think Pellizzari is also here. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's heating up in Tour de l'Avenir.
It certainly is. Well, this is a big split that's gone clear with several big riders in the mix. Pellizzari and Spigonzoli sit at 104. Spigonzoli in second place overall. Pellizzari at 224, and they've got some very willing riders as well. Got a couple of riders from GB in the mix. There's the King of the Mountains just rolling through, the victor yesterday, and he is driving hard. Just picked up a few more points there as they cross the line. But he won't be so bothered about that. He'll be bothered about piling the pressure on here. The gap is starting to open up here. And we saw one of the American riders dropping out of the back. And because of the size of this group and the representation from multiple countries, it's going to be all on the Americans to bring this back.
Yeah, if anyone else is going to help out the Americans, it could be, for instance, France, but I think they shouldn't do it. I think they should rely on the American team to close this gap, but it's going to be difficult because this group is really motoring. Everyone working right now except Alex Eilhard sitting on the back, obviously waiting for his team leader, William Lesser, which it does make sense. Here we see the updated standings in the mountain points, the KOM jersey. But I don't think that's the most important thing in the race right now. It's this group just working together. We're just going to have to see, do they continue working together? Because if they do, then this could really become quite a big gap with these kinds of riders all pulling turns. Well, we have to imagine behind it's just the Americans trying to work together, but that's just a few riders against this whole group working in a chain gang formation. It's going to really grow that gap really quickly.
It certainly is. You can just see that. Del Toro is wearing two jerseys. Well, it's leading two jerseys, should I say. 10 seconds is the gap, so it's a slender one at the moment. And this is the slightly flatter valley road as groups that have been dropped to try and get back in. So this gap extending. There looks to be four. I think it's at least 3 or 4 Italians. It might be one rider from Luxembourg in the mix. The similar jersey from a distance, slightly darker blue for the Luxembourg team. But I think it's a black. Goliker, I think, is in this move, definitely. He's the rider that was very active early on. But Italy now pressing home this advantage in a group of about 15 riders. We'll get the names as soon as we can. A conversation there, well, a brief word from the Mexican rider, Isaac Del Toro, urging on at the Italians. This, at the moment, is looking pretty dangerous. This is the back of the bunch. That's a group just getting back on, or is that indeed the peloton? I'm wondering, well, this is indeed Group 2. Cannot see the yellow jersey anywhere. I wonder if Denmark are one of the teams that have missed this one, but they don't have anybody in the top 10 now, the Danes, so it's no need for them to chase. This should all be down to the Americans. But a fascinating situation here. The Czech Republic also represented. This is something that I did not expect.
No, but again, that's U23 racing. That's also the way that that Isaac Del Toro tends to race. He likes to go for moves like these, and it's making it very interesting. This, I think, is just that second group, but it doesn't look like there's any control. It looks like there's just riders trying to either work together to get back to the front group, or riders jumping across. But I mean, I'm almost doubting whether that's actually the second group on the road, whether there's a group in between with maybe the yellow jersey, because I can't imagine the front of that yellow jersey group is going to look like that. But yeah, this move, couple of the GC riders, some really strong climbers in the mix as well. It's a really interesting one.
Well, Joseph Blackmore is here. The rider from Norway, or one of the riders from Norway, is Embret Stvedsad Badseng. Del Toro. Lopez actually took the Prem. Abner Santiago Lopez of Colombia took the King of the Mountains points. 15 seconds, it's saying. And if that was the group behind, I saw a couple of riders from Israel assisting with the pacemaking, and that does actually make sense. And that will be the link between the Israel Premier Tech Continental team and Israel Premier Tech. I think some riders in this sort of dangerous situation will call in favours, and occasionally those kind of things will come to pass. Israel have got nobody up there at all in the GC, but seemingly happy to assist with the pacemaking as the road starts to kick up again, and it's Italy and Great Britain causing a lot of damage here.
And it's actually interesting because we were planning to just head along this valley road, but it looks like we've just turned up to another climb, and there were reports of well, falling rocks on one of the roads that we saw, and the stage was lengthened, so it does look like this might be just a brief interlude climb in the middle of the stage that wasn't on the original profile. Not sure whether that's beneficial for this group or whether it isn't, but the gap's big enough that I don't think anyone's going to be able to jump across on this climb.
Yep, it's certainly good at the moment. The only thing that Riticello, unless he can get riders together, get some sort of organisation, some cohesion, some alliances formed as well, is that they try and keep the gap at 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, because there is a possibility, given the prowess that he has on the climbs, that he could use the next descent to jump across himself. That is feasible, given how strong he is. 15 seconds, so Riticello doesn't need to panic. It's not a good situation that he's missed such a big group with his main rivals in it, and there he is. This is indeed the group behind. It's saying the gap now, Jens, has come down to just 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think those images we saw recently, that was just a group trying to get back to this group, which is in fact the second group on the road, the peloton, or rather what's left of it, because there's a pretty decent sized group moving off the front. 15 seconds, it seems a bit too little, given the fact that we haven't seen this the group in the background. There's one rider there, it seems, in between.
I think that was Ryan. I think it's one rider got dropped on the bottom. Ryan is still in there. I can just see him at the back with the yellow helmet and the green jersey, but there was one rider who was distanced on the bottom of this climb. This gap doesn't appear to be fluctuating at all. I'm wondering if it's just gaps we're getting from the side of the road, so they are quite old. This is certainly the peloton behind. Mathieu Riticello will be there. There's the group ahead. They've just gone around that hairpin bend. There's the rider in between. So I think you're right, Jens. I think the gap is more 15 or 20 seconds as we continue to look at this group now. Lots of looking round, and Italy are the main protagonists here, and Great Britain as well. Luxembourg also in the mix, and a couple of riders now starting to sit back. But this certainly is a steeper ascent than what we've got on the original profile.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's just that's these extra couple of kilometers slightly more uphill than we expected. That also means that there's going to be a descent coming up soon, and that's where this group actually got away. So that's not going to be beneficial for the peloton trying to come back. Here we're going to get a look at who's riding at the front of the group. Here is the yellow jersey, in fact, Mathieu Riticello. He hopefully not too stressed at this point, but it's a stressful situation. And he doesn't look to have a lot of teammates around him either.
No, I saw one. There's the French that are doing a little bit of riding as well. So that, because I didn't notice a French rider in the move. And the best placed rider overall is Mathis Rondel. He's a fair bit down. He's fourth, actually, at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So that will be where the allies lie. So France assisting with the pacemaking as well. I don't know if Germany have got a man in the move, but they haven't got anybody in the top 10. But there's the evidence. The French are indeed riding hard on the front, and this could save the race for Riticello, although the gap isn't coming down yet. Just 50 minutes of racing, give or take, and 25 seconds is the lead, and Riticello deciding to go alone. Thought that's what he might do as he launches himself clear to time trial, or try at least to time trial across the gap. I think this might be quite a good move.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a risky one, though, because if he doesn't get to this group at the top of the climb, he's just going to be in the valley in between with just a couple of riders on his wheel. So it must have been that he didn't have any riders to rely on. The French team also seemed to be losing riders quickly, and just thinking that he had to make this move himself, trying to get across. Rondel is in his wheel. There's another rider in his wheel. Some of the peloton seems to be following, but I think at this pace, with the group in front not going as fast as this group at this point, I think I think he's going to come across pretty quickly, but whether it's going to be in time, we'll have to see.
He's got to make sure that after this sort of effort, and he's going full deep here, this is an explosive effort. He's hardly sat down, out of the saddle, big gear, low cadence, high torque, pushing out some big numbers to try and shut this gap down. One of the riders just coming across the gap there, looked like that was Francesco Bussato, just latching on to the back of this group. A couple of French riders. I would say he is closing the gap, but the danger is at what cost. If he does manage to get back on, that's fertile ground for other riders to go straight over the top again, because at the moment he is exposed. I think he is bridging, but still not in sight yet. Well, there he is, in fact, just out of our sight though, so I think he might actually get across this move. It's a bold move, but I think it's possibly the right thing to do.
Yeah, at this point he just has to commit and try to get across. It's a long way, and it's a really hard effort. The other rider's got away on the descent. He's going to have to close it on pure power. He's still not there. It's still 10 to 15 seconds there, but he's slowly making his way across. A couple of riders in his wheel, but he has to do it before the top of this small climb. Not quite sure how long it is again, because the course has changed this today just due to those landslide possibilities. And it's the Norwegians actually also banding together with the other riders to try and keep Riccitello behind.
No, definitely. They're thinking about a possible stage when the Norwegians don't have anybody inside the top 10, but have probably looked behind, because there's a renewed sense of vigour, a renewed sense of urgency, because they'll be fully aware just by glancing behind them of what the situation is. Riccitello has a group with him. One or two of the French riders appear to be giving him a little bit of assistance, including Matthias Rondel. Remember, he sits in 4th place overall. He's risking losing that place. Meanwhile, the lead group are just dropping down the other side, and I'd estimate the gap to be to the group containing Riccitello about 15 or 20 seconds. Oh, hold on to your hats here. This wet and dry surface often wreaks havoc. A couple of loose stones on the side of the road there as well. Dangerous times here at the Tour de l'Avenir. Riccitello trying to force his way across to this move. This is an exciting race, Jens.
Yeah, I think this is the mountain biker Joseph Blackmore forcing it on the descent, and that's not someone you want to follow if you're scared on the descents, because he will be able to go downhill really quickly. And it's not a nice descent. It's a patchwork of asphalt and mended bits of asphalt. Narrow roads, you can't really see through the corners, so yeah, it's a risky one, especially given the fact that Riccitello is going to have to make his way across on this descent. He's going to have to take some risks, or he's risking losing out on this jersey.
He certainly is. It's not what he wants. I think he's a pretty decent descender, but as you say, Blackmore, an exceptionally gifted mountain biker, rode the World Championships so recently, and is one of 2 British riders. There's the composition of the break. I'll go through the break for you now. Giulio Pellizzari, David Piganzoli and Alessandro Pillarello are the 3 Italians in the mix. 2 riders from Great Britain, we've already mentioned, Josh Golica and Joseph Blackmore. Karel Kamdra is there from the Czech Republic. Alex Segard of Belgium in the mix. Mats Wenzel of Luxembourg. We've got Enikoit Ispaden from Spain. Johannes Kulset and Embret Svestad Barseng of Norway. Isaac Del Toro is also there for Mexico as they continue to whiz down this descent at a real pace. Archie Ryan is there for Ireland, and Abner Santiago Umba Lopez of Colombia. They are the riders in the move, and the pace here by Blackmore is splitting this group, and it's going to be making it very hard for Riccitello to get on here.
Yeah, this is not the kind of pace that Riccitello is just going to easily slot onto the back of this group. It's that gap's definitely not going to come down, certainly towards the front of this group. And we're seeing riders all over the road at this point at the back of the peloton. It's chaos on the road, and well, that's what we really hoped for. I think this is sort of the best case scenario for us, the viewers. Maybe not the best case scenario for anyone who isn't very comfortable descending in the wet.
Yep. I'm not too sure if this is the last rider in the lead group or the last rider in the peloton, but the one thing that this could actually do, although it looks like he, I think, yeah, Riccitello's getting on. There's 3 distinct groups here. Little group just off the front containing Del Toro in the white and spotted jersey, then the group of Italians, and then you can just see Matthew Riccitello in group 3. So he has absolutely rocketed down that descent. And maybe he was actually aided by the fact that the group in front started to split so much and was spread out. You actually close up time without really even thinking about it.
Yeah, he definitely took some risks going down there, but he was definitely also helped by that group just not being able to hold each other's wheel down the descent. Just sort of filled up the gap in front of him, and he was able to slot on to the back of this group. But now we're getting into this interesting situation where this is not something that we see very often with a group of GC riders having attacks and then being brought back. Now we're seeing attacks. It's Goliker for Britain, and then one of the Norwegian riders who has started attacking. I think that must be Jonas Gulset for riding with the Uno X helmet there. Archie Ryan now trying to get across, but there's more riders trying to slip into this move.
Yep. Well, this has been a thrilling race so far. Stage 7B. We already had the time trial this morning. A busy, strength-sapping day for these young under-23 riders. The riders of the future. The riders of the present day, in fact, many of these already established World Tour pros. Several in this field. Ryan has been aggressive this morning already. One of the most aggressive riders, trying to get in several moves before this big split of about 15 riders went clear. At one point, Mattia Riticello was 25 seconds adrift and relatively isolated. Didn't appear to have too many riders from the United States around him. And this terrain arguably is actually more dangerous than the climbs to come, because we know how Riticello, how strong he is on the climbs. Just that illustration there, although he clearly had to go deep. But these are the sorts of moves on the flat that are going to be very difficult to control if the right little move goes clear.
Yeah, especially because he's on his own. I think going up a climb, it would be quite easy to just slot on the back of an attacking rider, because he is just one of the maybe 2 or 3 best climbers at worst in this race. But in this group, I don't think he's got any teammates at this point, and it's a pretty decently sized group. If one of the GC riders attacks now, he's in huge trouble, because he will have to close it himself, or he's going to have to just be lucky enough that someone else closes it for him. But that's probably not going to happen if there's any serious gap. So really, really nervous times for Riticello. He's just going to have to hope to survive this bit of valley before they get onto the next climb. It doesn't take too long before they go onto the Monte d'Ossois. But he's still going to have to survive it. The pace is really high, so that is probably an advantage for him. But it's just going to be very difficult for him at the moment.
Oh, nearly an hour of racing, and I tell you what, it appears to have gone by in almost a blink of an eye. It really has been fascinating. It's been a brilliant week of racing so far. Still got one more stage to go tomorrow, another big challenging day in the Alps. Of course, in this beautiful area, in the Haute-Maurienne region of the French Alps, not too far away from the Italian border. And we do climb up to the top of Valseny, and there's a beautiful lake there which freezes in the winter, and there's ice skating on it. It is absolutely stunning. That's a long way off yet. I'm still relatively low down. We've gained a little bit of altitude. The next high point on the menu, as Jens was just talking about, is the Monte d'Ossois. That tops out at 1,460 meters, and then the day just continues on. It is one long grind with 1 or 2 small descents before the big haul up to the Col de Montcenis, and over the top. That could be interesting as well. It isn't technically a mountaintop finish today. We have 5 kilometers of just gently undulating terrain to the finish at Valseny, the ski station itself, or the ski resort, should I say. So it isn't a mountaintop finish. Opportunities over the top, and it's the flatter terrain, I think, that could prove difficult. Although Riticello does have that decent advantage, 4 minutes over the 10th place rider and just over a minute over the 2nd place rider. But right now, as you were saying, Jens, he is relatively isolated, and the thing that he's going to have to rely on, as well as good legs himself, is these combinations going, but other riders constantly missing out and hopefully bringing them back for him. So other riders protecting their own interests inside the top 10 is what he could actually hang on to the coattails as well and play a little bit of brinkmanship there.
Yeah, and I think until now he's been lucky that no GC riders have tried to slip in this kind of move. I think this looks like Goliker again. It must be the 10th time that he's tried to make a move. I think the Luxembourg rider is Mats Wenzel, and then there's the Swiss rider in there as well. So no threat on the overall. So that's lucky for him, and we're actually starting that climb now. So that's definitely going to be a good sign for him. 6.5 kilometers, 6%. That's yeah, he's going to be happy about the climbing because that's his kind of terrain. He's happy to be on the climb, I think. As we saw, Jan Christen, that's a rider who is up there on the overall. He seems to have dropped off the back of the main group of favourites. It's not really even a peloton anymore.
Yeah, Jan Christen sits in 6th place overall. That's 3 minutes and 8 seconds. It's quite densely packed, like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, just a minute between them. As we look at the group, Anders Foldager there, still in that green jersey, still has a 3 or 4 point lead in the Maillot Epoin. And this is a group just getting back in contact. And there is the man, Jan Christen, as I said, 3 minutes and 7 seconds down on the GC. Also with him there, the Austrian champion Alexander Hayek. Archie Ryan just sat out of the saddle, just at the back of this group. And there is yesterday's stage winner, sitting in 3rd place overall, leading both the best young riders classification and also the King of the Mountains. Picked up a couple more points earlier on. And the next climb he'll be interested in as well. I don't think he'll want to invest too much, but I'm sure he might want to snaffle some points if they don't come at too much of a cost. There's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 points on offer at this next climb, and then up the Col de Monsigny itself. As it looks like the Swiss rider here is having a bit of a tough day.
Yeah, and with him as well, Fernando Tejero, the 7th place rider on the GC. So 2 riders from inside the top 10 losing contact on those early moves. And I think they'll not be too happy with how the day has turned out until now. But we're not even halfway into the stage, I think. Or just sort of coming up to the halfway point at the top of this climb. So it's going to take a while before this settles down. I don't think it's going to settle down, actually, because this is Karel Kamada, the Czech rider, trying to move off the front. And just seeing Ricciutello closing a move there, I think that must have then been Pellizzari, because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to close it down.
Exactly. There we go. It's Josh Goliker of Great Britain, Robin Dons of Switzerland, and Mats Wenzel of Luxembourg. 3 riders en tête at the moment. 37.5 Ks to go. As this man continues to yo-yo Jan Christen. The Swiss have already had a stage win a few days ago in the form of Fabio Christian, but he certainly seems to be suffering here. It's so difficult when you're not having a good day. When the pace increases, you get dropped, but it looks like he might get back in contact here as the road starts to ease just a little bit. Quite a long climb, this one, or relatively speaking, 6.2 or 6.5 Ks, should I say, at 6.2%. But the kilometres ever so slightly out now because of that little detour. I think it did add actually 3 Ks on to the day today. A little free climb that did split the field. But thankfully for Mathieu Riticello, he is now safely in the clutches of the peloton. But I haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jens, I haven't seen a teammate in there for him. And that is the thing that's quite nervous. So he's going to have to rely on other squads to do the pacemaking. And that is what's happening right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any American teammates in there, but the Belgian team seems to have just taken over the pacemaking. It's Kops at the front, Segaert's still in there. And that's all working for Leclerc, who's their team leader. He's still up there in the general classification. So Del Toro again at the pack. We saw it yesterday. I thought he was suffering, but turned out that he definitely wasn't suffering. So I think we shouldn't be fooled too much by that.
Well, I'm sure he'd like to go for another stage win. He rode really smart yesterday, didn't he? Didn't get involved in a lot of the attacking. I didn't see him shut down one move. Edgar Pinzon, the Colombian, was the most active on the Col de la Loze yesterday, at least until around 2/3 up, and then he capitulated. It was indeed Riticello who accelerated, drawing Del Toro clear. In fact, going clear on his own at one point. But again, Del Toro forced Piganzoli to shut the gap on that occasion. So as a wily character for a 19-year-old, from what I've seen so far, he's smart as well, isn't he? And that's the sort of combination that forms a potent force as a bike racer. Smart, strong, get those two together and you're going to win a lot of bike races. So he measured his effort perfectly yesterday.
Yeah, and I think the most scary thing is looking back to that, was it the fourth stage where he attacked with about 20 kilometers to go. He can also descend really well. He's technically a really strong rider with that cyclocross mountain bike background that he has. I'm just going to say that I just received a message from the under-23 national coach for America that it's not actually Riccitello, the pronunciation. It's, I hope I'm saying it right, if it's Riccatello. It's going to be something like that. But I think that's a trusted source. They're actually actual team manager. So let's hope we're pronouncing that right. It makes sense that we don't know every pronunciation yet. These are young riders. We haven't seen them on screen very often.
Riccitello, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for passing that on. We're always listening to trying to get the correct pronunciations right. So Riccitello, Mathieu Riccitello it is. But he's sitting pretty in the bunch. And will, of course, have, although it's never nice to be isolated, what he can draw from is the confidence on the performance today, this morning especially, adding some more valuable seconds to that overall lead. And the further you get down the top 10, the bigger the buffer he has. And the closest riders to him, Piganzoli at 105, Del Toro at 112, and Rondel at 210. And the way that the Belgian team have taken this up at the moment, for the first time, this race has actually settled down. Why do you think Belgium are riding here? I mean, they've got Le Cerf up there on the general classification, 8th at 3 minutes and 46. This feels more like it's something to try and make this hard, to launch him up the road a little bit later on and try for a stage win more than the GC play.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. I don't think that, well, there's no one who's in front of him in the GC who's behind that group, so it could be that they were just trying to keep those two riders who had dropped behind him, maybe just trying to make the race hard because they've seen some weakness and just trying to move up in the general. But it could easily just be Le Cerf having good legs today and saying to his team that he wants to go for the stage win and he wants to make it a hard race.
Well, they certainly are piling on the pressure right now. It's come down to 15 seconds the gap to our three leaders out in front. Golica doing a long turn. It's been exceptionally active, just rolling a pretty big gear there. And then Robin Donze in second place. A couple more riders starting to get dropped again. The Spaniard there just at the back, who we were talking about early, is having a torrid day. So the Belgians really piling on the pressure here. Perhaps aware there was one or two riders struggling, looking to perhaps move their team leader a little bit further up the general classification, because it's Tecerdo who's getting dropped here, and Le Cerf is only a few seconds behind him on the general classification, although I'm not sure that is what their main focus is. And given the slightly different climbing that we have today, still a lot of elevation in the bank for the riders today, but given the slightly more benign gradients to the fearsome slopes of the Col de la Loze, as we were talking about, I'm sure there's other riders here who fancy their chances on what I think will be more of a punchier stage, and I do think we'll see a few more riders up there in the mix as we get towards the finish.
Yeah, just on Terceo, it was Lars Kapp's, Le Cerf's teammate, who just got dropped with that group and got back on with Terceo, and he must have seen that Terceo was struggling. So it could just be that Le Cerf is putting his team on the front to try to move him up, himself up in the general classification. That would make some kind of sense, because just if he can get rid of those two riders, that's 6th. And then there's still everything to play for, even for a podium tomorrow. If there's any kind of weakness in some of the other riders, it's definitely still possible. So they're doing a good job putting the pressure on the other riders. But at this point, it's not really steep enough to really drop anyone, I think, unless they really don't have the good legs.
And the only rider as well that seemed to be struggling, but I think he's managed to latch on to the group, was Jan Christian as well. Again, just another couple of places in front of the Belgium on the GC. But the group now is at just 10 seconds, so the gap closing to Wenzel, Donze and Golica.
Yeah, just here on the back, Mathis Rondel as well, the French rider who is in 4th overall. So if they have also sensed some weakness there, that could be one of the reasons why they're riding. Rondel, he does look to be struggling, or he's just sitting on the back again. We have seen it this week, so that could be something. But it's probably worth just exploring. They've got the riders anyway, and it's not too long until the start of that final climb. where it's just going to be up to the climbers. So why not just make the race hard? If Lesair is feeling great, then yeah, why not? Makes sense.
It certainly does. And they've clearly had the instruction to ride. They're not riding this just for the fun of it. There's clearly a plan. And 1 or 2, the Spaniard actually is dropping away considerably. Tercero is dropping away. He's about 10 or 15 seconds off the back, and there's not many opportunities on the course. Again, going back to the profile we have, safe for 1 or 2 little descents where you can recuperate, take some food on, and just take that stress out a little bit, just back off most of the day today. The chain, I think it's fair to say, is going to be very tight on the bike as we continue to gain elevation now. Looking back down this beautiful valley, climbing above the clouds, good long pull on the front here from Goliker, is looking very strong here.
Yeah, he is looking strong, but with that Belgian team tracing behind, it's going to be difficult for those 3 to hold on. I think they were just looking for that stage win, but and then just hoping that the peloton behind would slow down, but they're not doing that. They're just continuing to ride hard, which is going to be a disappointment for those front 3, because once they get onto the final climb, even if they get onto it with 10 seconds, it's just not going to be enough, and I don't think they're even going to make it. I think they might not even make the top of this climb, because that's still about 1.5 kilometers away. That's even going to be difficult with the pace that's being set by Alex Segaert behind.
Yeah, it certainly is. This man completely committed to make this as hard as possible. Just looking back on the results of Goliker, he'd be a little bit disappointed not to be a little bit higher on the general classification, but has excelled this year. He really has, especially in one of the most preeminent under-23 races outside of the L'Avenir and the Giro Next Generation. The Giro Valle d'Aosta took 2 stage wins there and won the points classification, as well as 3rd in the individual time trial championships of Great Britain. Now that is one of the races where a lot of the scouts will be looking. But he's looking good right now, as we have our first real side-on shot of the yellow jersey, Matthew Riccatello. And there's David Piganzoli as well. The Italians having a really good day today. Put the young American under a lot of pressure, the man from Tucson. And right now, again, just looking up and down this group, there's several riders from Colombia. Still, I think we can confirm there's no American riders in this group to look after Riccatello. Otherwise, they would be next to him. There's nobody at the back, nobody in the centre, so it does appear to be isolated. But right now, relatively speaking, Jens, I think it's fair to say that for Riccatello, things have calmed down now, and we've got a little bit more of a rhythm now that the Belgians have taken things up.
Yeah, he'll be a little bit more relaxed than he was chasing down that group on his own in the descent. That must have been a really stressful moment, but at this point, the situation is perfect. There's another team just riding a hard pace, which is just going to suit him, because he's one of the stronger climbers. He's not going to lose a lot of, well, he's going to lose some energy, but the rest is going to lose even more. So this is really a perfect scenario. It's completely controlled. He's not having to rely on his own team, because they're not there, but there's another team just to fill that gap, and you know, it could have been, if there was no control, that the GC riders would just keep attacking him up this climb, but it's settled down, and he's in luck, I think, today, as Goliker tries to go for those mountain points maybe, or just thinks that the tempo is not high enough with the other 2 riders with him.
Yeah, I think he just ridden them off his wheel. The shot we had before that one, there was a slight gap opening up. There's no big sharp acceleration from Goliker. I just don't think the 2 riders that are with him, Robin Dons, could actually hold on the wheel. I think he's just going that little bit quicker, maybe feeling the pressure of the Belgians behind as well, because this race has not let up from kilometre 0. Once the flag dropped, it has been full throttle racing. Took several Ks for the first breakaway to go clear, and that went clear on the slopes of the Monte d'Oel. But now Goliker absolutely flying on this false flat here. 15 seconds it's saying. You can just see the bunch in the distance, but he's completely and utterly drops the 2 riders that he was with. We're looking at the that was the Tercero, who has been dropped from this group, and still Belgium driving hard here. This is a big long tempo being set here.
Yeah, Goliker is going really fast, but Segaert is just matching that pace. It's still 15 seconds, and at this stage we see that the pace is going up. road flattens out here, and it's just going to be such a big benefit to sit in the wheels right now. With someone like Teixeira just being dropped, he's going to really suffer on this this kind of section. He's going to lose a lot of time this way.
I'm just looking at getting information as well that the composition of this lead group, which must be approximately 25 riders, Mathis Rondel of France doesn't have any teammates either. Golic and Lee went straight to the back of the motorbike there, no doubt trying to get a little bit of added slipstream. A big smile there from the British rider, clearly feeling good today as we pass through the feed zone. And then up ahead, great to see these views. Maybe not so for the riders, just a reminder of what lays ahead. Thankfully, the rain to a degree has relented somewhat. There's a couple of the riders that were just clear. There's Dons just been caught by the Belgian team, still leading. Italy not too far away. And again, another good day by Anders Foldager as well of Denmark in that green jersey. One of a couple of green jerseys in this group. Archie Ryan, of course, at the back there from Ireland. But 15 seconds it is now for Josh Golica on this long straight road. But thank goodness we can see blue sky ahead.
Yeah, that must be a welcome sign for the riders. They've had to deal with some rain this morning, and this afternoon it didn't look too great at the start either. But now it's starting to look a little bit better. We're even seeing some shadows on the road, so yeah, it's going to be a welcome change from this morning, although the riders have had too many hot temperatures this week already, I think. So probably this slightly cooler temperature won't be too bad, but yeah, it's still always, for most people anyway, it's better to ride in the sun than in the rain.
No, definitely. So Golica continues to ride hard on the front here. His lead has come down to 10 seconds only. He's just going through the King of the Mountains points, so a couple more points in the bag, or some points in the bag there, 10 points in fact, for the British rider who rides for the Groupama FDJ Continental team, one of the most successful Conti teams in terms of taking riders to the next level at World Tour. When you look over the past 5 or 6 years, I think it's 20 or 25 riders, give or take, that have moved on to World Tour status, and one of the most respected and successful feeder teams out there. A lot of young British riders have come through their ranks as well, and this man, I'm sure, has a very bright future and looking good today. Continues to roll the slightly bigger gear. Interesting looking at the techniques of riders, how some just push that slightly bigger gear, others like to really keep on top of that higher cadence. But again, some riders just adapt differently, don't they? And it always fascinates me that we think there's this ultimate cadence around 90, give or take, where there are some riders who push that gear, make it look so effortless, but to become accustomed to that biomechanics, efficiency. Sometimes the bigger gear, you can actually lower the heart rate, but that whole science behind pedaling dynamics I find absolutely fascinating.
I think you'll know more about it than me. It's not my expertise, but what I do know is Golica, he's one of the youngest riders in this race, actually. He's a first year under 23, so that makes it maybe even more impressive that he's actually up here solo in one of the mountain stages in Tour de l'Avenir, with the European time trial champion chasing him down, but not quite getting there at the moment.
He's on the hoods here. There's a small descent off the top of this climb, then it picks up again, so not much of an opportunity to back off the pressure. But as you can see, although it is a descent, it is one of those sorts of descents that you have to keep on riding. It's only about 5 or 6% downhill. Archie Ryan, last man in the group. I can give you the composition of the group as Golica takes a glance around. See the group behind, and that's I think they might even be under 10 seconds. I don't think his tenure at the front is going to last much longer, and he might be minded to actually just back off a little bit here as well, because he's not going anywhere right now. He's clearly got good legs here. He needs to make a decision here, doesn't he, because clearly the Belgians are keen to pull this back, or maybe not. Maybe they don't see Golica as a threat at all. He sits 19th on the general classification, but right now the Belgians are just riding their own race, and unfortunately Golica is part of that collateral damage right now.
Yeah, I think Goliker's just unlucky with the stage and how it looks. 70 kilometers too short, really, for a breakaway to go. He tried really hard to get up the road, but there's just too much pace in the peloton behind, especially with the Belgians trying to drop Terceo and maybe even drop Kisten, who has shown some weakness. They're just riding for that general classification, and the fact that Goliker is out there probably doesn't really matter to them. He's just sort of, well, he's not even in the way, but he is probably going to get caught at this stage.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. As he continuing, keeps looking round. He can be minded really here to just pull the pin, give himself 10 or 15 seconds of relative recuperation, and then thinking about what lays ahead. This next section just drags on for quite a long time, and then it gets a little bit steeper. So there's no more categorized climbs until 5Ks to go. But saying that, there is still a lot of uphill. So lots of climbing before we hit the top of the final climb, which comes with 5Ks to go. And the final climb is nearly 10Ks long. Pretty even gradient all the way up. 7% average. As Goliker, for the first time in a while, is given the luxury of being able to freewheel. And it's looking good. Always need to be a little bit mindful on descent, where you can see is this patchwork road surface, but there's still a lot of runoff. You can bank your bike into the corner on the dry, and then on the exit to the corner, which you can't see, the bike's banked over too much and you hit some wet. So you need to apply a little bit of caution on a descent like this, and good to see the pennant marshals just slowing these riders down, or at least giving them the opportunity to slow down because the bend's up ahead. But Goliker has pulled out a little bit more of a lead here as the road just kicks up ever so slightly. Although saying that, it looks like they're nearly on him.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for him. They're still on this sort of plateau section. It's not the real descent yet, but we're not really going to see a proper descent. It's sort of, again, as you said, those 4 or 5%. But there's some flat sections in there as well. But we're actually still rising to a slightly higher point than the actual top of the climb we just saw. Just gonna see about 2 kilometers still to go, and then we will really go downhill. But it will be quite difficult for Goliker to even make it there at this point, because it's just going to go too fast in the peloton with Segaert and Kops working together probably to keep Terceo behind and to put the pressure on the other GC riders.
Yeah, it's certainly helping out Riccitello, that's for sure. Goliker still hasn't been caught. I'm just going to go through the names of the group containing our Maillot Jaune, Mathieu Riccitello, and the rest. So we have from Italy, Giulio Belizzari, David Piganzoli, Alessandro Pinarello. For Great Britain, we have Joseph Blackmore, and also the man in front, who is about to be caught as we get confirmation of the second category climb of the Monte di Assois. Goliker taking the points there. Denmark have Anders Foldager and Simon Dolby. Simon Dolby, a former yellow jersey wearer of this race, as indeed was Anders Foldager, of course. Matthias Rondel is the only rider from France. Garrod Camara is there from the Czech Republic. Alex Segaert, Lars Krabs and William Junior Lesurf are there for Belgium. Jan Christian and Robin Dons are there for Switzerland. Tijmen Graat is there for the Netherlands. Mats Wenzel of Luxembourg. Inequans Asparen, the only representative from Spain. Embret Svestad Barseng is there from Norway. Isaac Del Toro and Jose Ramon Muns Vasquez are there for Mexico. Archie Ryan from Ireland, we saw him at the back. Alexander Hayek of Austria. And then we've got Dario Gomez Becerra and Abner Santiago Umba Lopez and Fernando Diego Pescador Castro of Colombia. So that is the composition of the group out in front. And it doesn't look like they're going to be joined by anybody else, given the tempo that's being set right now. The stage winner is going to come from this group, as Goliker's time at the front is about to be snuffed out. He hasn't given up, has he? He's continued to persist, despite the best efforts of the Belgians behind, certainly putting them under pressure. I don't know whether that was the best thing to do or not. Only time will tell, but clearly Goliker's got good legs. But my advice to him would be now just to sit in, recuperate, and see what can happen a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'm not sure today is going to be the day for Goliker. I think at this point he's going to have spent so much energy trying to get up the road, and it hasn't worked out for him. He's going to struggle on that final climb. I think he's just joking around with the Belgian riders. I think they both understand the tactical situation there. But yeah, for him it might be best to just ride off this day and look for tomorrow, because there's still a big stage coming up, and he's clearly got some good legs, but the overall is not going to be his thing this week, given the fact he's already lost quite a lot of time. But tomorrow there's still a stage win up for grabs, and if he can get into that breakaway tomorrow, if there is a breakaway, then he's probably one of the best climbers who might be able to get in there. So yeah, but I mean, the other thing is just try to hold on today and see where you can get in the result. But that's not the most energy efficient way to win a stage, if that's still a goal.
Exactly. 27 Ks to go now to the finish line at Valseny. Looking ahead to tomorrow, talking of tomorrow's stage, the final stage of the Tour de l'Avenir this year, 99.6 kilometers. It's another hilly one. It is a mountaintop finish. But there are 4 categorized climbs. We have the second category, Col de la Madeleine, which comes just after 12 Ks. And then we have the mighty ascent. Actually, it's the highest point of this year's Tour de l'Avenir, up to 2,770 meters, well up into altitude of the Col d'Iseran. 12.8 Ks at 7.3%. That comes at 37 Ks in. Then we have a long descent. In fact, we have the best part of 40 kilometers downhill. And then we kick up to the Monte du Villaret, 8.6 Ks at 5.8%, down again, and then up the final climb to Sainte-Foy-d'Arentez, finished at the top of a first category ascent. So a first and all category and 2 second category climbs will finish off tomorrow's stage. But it's that big descent with the weather that we're talking about, possibly tomorrow, inclement conditions, and the lofty heights of the Col d'Iseran. And look, I'm looking at that descent now. It is a very, very long descent indeed. The descent could prove to be more problematic than the ascent, quite probably.
I mean, it's a really hard climb, but that descent at the probable temperatures of around 7 or 8 degrees in the rain, that's going to be an issue for some riders, because it's such a long period of time where you're barely pedaling, you're not able to keep your body warm, and yeah, there's very few rain jackets that can protect against a 40-kilometer descent, and the wind chill factor that comes into it. Yeah, that's it's definitely going to cause some problems for some people. So it's going to be important to be prepared to have the right gear on, and yeah, to have someone at the top probably with rain jackets, with all sorts of different stuff, maybe even gloves to do that descent if you haven't already got them with you, because that climb, you're going to almost be overheating on the climb, and then cooling down so much on the descent. I don't know if anyone's going to win the race there, but it's definitely one of those points where if you do get cold, then it's very hard to come back from it.
Exactly. Yeah, we start already pretty high in the Savoie. Of course, we remain in this beautiful area at Valseny-Termignon. We climb from the off. Well, it's a little climb, then flat, then we kick up to the Col de la Madeleine. And we start at 1,200 meters, and then we end up at 2,770. And then we lose all that elevation, or most of that elevation, before picking up again to 1,500 meters. So it's a day of up and downs. What you're looking at is today's stage, of course. There's the finish, top right of your screen, Valseny. The ski station, the ski resort just at the top. It's Valseny itself is made up of 4 or 5 smaller villages. It is absolutely stunning. Pop online, look at some of the pictures, and in the next 45 minutes or so you'll be able to see for yourselves this beautiful lake at the top. It is absolutely stunning, not too far away from the border of Italy, and one of the quieter ski resorts out there as well, because the road itself is pretty remote. It's frequented by a lot of Italians, and French and Germans come here, but apparently it's a lovely place to ski, because there are never too many queues for the ski lifts, because it is such a remote place, relatively speaking. Anyway, 51 k's an hour plus on this false flat downhill. 23.4 k's to go as they continue to lose a little bit of elevation. And shortly, and they'll be kicking up, going through Solière at the moment. I must admit, the profile that I have at the moment doesn't really show this sort of descent. It's again, the scale of the profile pretty wreaking havoc with the micro level of ebb and flow, these little peaks and troughs we get. But the sun properly out now, and that frequency of light beautifully high. And Belgium still, well, they've not missed a beat here, have they? They've got one thing on their mind, and clearly it's putting Le Cerf in a good place. Well, there's a lot of pressure on the young man's shoulders here, because they've ridden the best part of a third of this race now, steamrolled over any attempts at getting a breakaway, and are continuing with this effort. So it's sacrificial riding here by both Alex Segard and Lars Krabs.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting moments. Just the group, it's not even a peloton anymore, the group really stretched out due to that descent, gaps between the riders, and Krabs on the front just continues to ride, and he stretches out the peloton even more until the point that there are just gaps in between these riders, and everyone who's right at the back there caught out, gaps opening up, and now with Segard on the front, it's going to take a huge effort to come across those gaps. Riccitello definitely in that group. The Italians seem to be there as well, but there's a few riders caught out by the pace on the flat here in this valley road.
Yeah, they're absolutely motoring here. You can see how hard it was for the riders just to get back in the wheels. They're absolutely motoring. Any little bit of wind that blows, it's quite exposed here. There's only a light wind blowing today, about 6 or 7 kilometers an hour, so it shouldn't play too much. But it has sewn back together now, but a stressful moment there. Some unnecessary energy expended sewing together those gaps, but Riccitello not making any mistakes. Still a fair way back though. Still sat about 10th or 15th place. But I guess if you drop back a little bit further, because you haven't really got any teammates, you can then get sight of the riders in front of you, because he is going to have to respond at times now in the next, maybe not in the next 5 or 10 Ks, but in the closing kilometers of this race, especially over the top of the climb, he is going to come under attack. So not surprisingly, he's dropped back to a little bit, so we can get sight of the riders that potentially pose the biggest threat to him.
Yeah, and I think also on the flat, maybe it's not the case on the descent, but just on the flat here, it does make a difference if you're in 3rd place or if you're in 15th place, just in terms of the aerodynamic advantage of sitting on the wheel. It's just a little bit better to be in the middle of that group than to be right at the front. So he's doing the right thing. Also, just sort of not being on the mind of the riders in front. This race situation is perfect for him, and he shouldn't really do anything to disturb that situation, because in the situation that he is in with no teammates around him, then this controlled kind of riding is perfect, because he's not having to make any efforts. He's just in a good place, getting brought to the bottom of that final climb where he can just do his thing, because that's where he's best.
Yeah, Segard's doing a cracking job at the moment. Took the first stage of the Giro Next Generation as well. 2nd in the Under-23 Road Championships, time trial. And of course, rides at the second highest level. Again, Lotto Destiny at the moment, of course, aren't a World Tour team, but again, everything but name, they're a World Tour setup, but a UCI Pro team. So a good program. And he's able just to sit on the front, metronomic-like, and just pull this group along as the road now kicks up a little bit more. This is this uncategorized climb, which lasts for about 7 or 8 Ks. There's then a ridge on the top, a slight plateau, another descent, another kick, and the flat, and then we'll head into the final 10 kilometers, 10 or 15 Ks of today's stage. And the pace that's being set, it's not only hard, but it's deterring any attacks at all. So right now, again, we have to look at the overall situation. This is totally ideal for Riccitello right now.
Yeah, I think he couldn't have. Well, I mean, the better situation would obviously be with his teammates around him. But
yep,
given the fact that the teammates aren't there, this is the best situation he could have asked for. But just noticing a couple slightly weird things in that in the situation right now. We've seen one of the Spanish riders, Alsparen, who is still in this group, while Tercero, who's in the top 10 on GC, is not in the group anymore. So it's interesting to see that he hasn't dropped back at all to help his team leader. Maybe some inter-team rivalry going on there. And the other thing I noticed was in the list of riders that we saw, the 3 Colombians, but no Pinzon. Their best placed rider overall is not listed in that group, I think. So either that's an oversight, or the Colombian team has just decided to sit in that group without their leader.
Yep, interesting stuff. Is that Goliker again?
Does look like it.
Yeah. No, he has been caught. Is he going again here? Well, it certainly looks like it. These aren't repeat pictures from earlier on. Goliker is trying again to go clear. Wow, and this is this uncategorized climb. I mean, looking at what's already come, Jens, the Monte d'Oil and the Monte d'Ossoir. This climb actually looks harder, the middle of the profile, but it hasn't been categorized. It's just very interesting the way they categorize some of these climbs. This is one of the harder ascents of the day, save for the final climb.
Yeah, it's steeper, but it's definitely shorter than the other 2, so I think that's probably the reason they haven't given it a categorization. But we're getting pretty close to the finish now, with just 20 kilometers to go. That means about 5 kilometers until we hit the bottom of that final climb. The steepest portions of that climb are going to definitely come towards the end of the climb, sort of just over the halfway point up the climb. But it's going to be hard from the bottom. I think Seygaard is just riding his best pace he can do until the bottom of the climb. And it's already catching some riders out. Again, Rondel dropping to the back of the group here. He is, I mean, there might be a different reason for that, but it's not a great sign to see him at the back here.
No, not at all. Now Rondel dropping to the back. Isolated as well. Bit of a surprise, because the French team been riding well. Axel Williams was up there overall as well, but Rondel 4th at 2:10, certainly not having the best day. This man's having a good day. Well, the man at the front was Josh Goliker. A slender lead at the top. Meanwhile, his teammate Joseph Blackmore is almost last man now as this pace continues. Very quick. You get the real sense of how fast these riders are. Blackmore's struggling for the wheel behind, but Goliker, well, he's absolutely flying. I don't know what purpose this is serving at the moment, especially given the way that the Belgian team are riding. But you cannot fault his application. I'm just not sure what this move is all about, especially given the climbing we've got. Unless it is because he isn't overly confident on the final climbers, trying to eke out another bit of an attack. But right now, Belgium are absolutely bossing this race. 9.6 Ks to go. The yellow jersey, Matthew Riccatello, safely ensconced in this group, although he is isolated. 3 Italians in the move. 2nd and 4th place on 3rd place overall, remember, so 2nd and 5th place overall, should I say. Del Toro is there in 3rd place from Mexico, the winner of yesterday's road stage. Atop the Col de la Loze. He's also in the mix as well. But it is one team that have dominated proceedings so far. Alex Seygaard and Lars Krabs of Belgium setting a quite remarkable tempo in the service of William Junior Lesurf, is looking to move up the general classification a little bit, and the way they're riding, setting him up hopefully for some sort of stage win as well, or for the stage win. Now, it's looking at the way this could go today. We've still got the climb to come, Jens. Then it's flat over the top. The last 5k gently undulating, the gentlest of kick-ups to the line. It is essentially flat right near the lake. What sort of finish has Lesurf got? Can he win from a smaller group? Do you think that's what this is all about?
Well, he's certainly not a very fast finisher, but of course we're talking about climbers here. It's not necessarily, you know, the climbers tend to be not too fast at the finish. That's different physiology, but just looking at that sort of top 10, I think we've got a couple pretty punchy riders. So if it's a bigger group, I don't think it's going to be the series who's going to be the best finisher. Would more look at Del Toro, Christen, maybe even Tijmen Gaat for that sort of effort. Although it is a different situation in a flat sprint on top of a mountain. That's always a weird scenario. But I don't think he's necessarily the fastest, but he must be confident enough that he thinks he can get away on the climb. And on the other hand, it's possible, of course, that we go across that climb with a group of 5 or 6 riders, and then we get some tactical games being played afterwards, and he's not someone that the best GC riders are going to immediately respond to, because he is almost 4 minutes back. So if he attacks, then Riccatello is not going to close it down. The Italian's probably not going to close it down immediately either. So he's got a chance if it just works out right, or maybe if he's got the best legs of his lifetime, then he could just win it on the climb and attack everyone.
He clearly wants a steady pace, a hard pace, than that staccato style of racing where you just get riders attacking and going clear. This way you're imposing control over the situation, but at the same time it costs resource to control anything, and at the moment Segart and Krapps are digging deep. But again, remind everybody, this is a very short stage. They've had the 11k time trial. I'm sure there were some riders who rode that time trial. Still going to be a hard effort. 11k's, 31 minutes it was for the winner Riccatello. One rider got eliminated, as you were talking about, but I'm sure some teams looked at this morning's TT and looked at some riders maybe for this afternoon and actually said, look, just ride within yourself as much as you can at a TT. TTs are always hard, but you don't need to ride flat out, because that time trial is going to be in riders' legs. So that all of the top 10 rode pretty much flat out, and I do think there is potential opportunities here for riders who went a little bit easier, dropped down the general classification to try something today, given the residual fatigue from that hard effort this morning, and indeed the brutal climb of the Col de la Loze yesterday.
Yeah, I think just for an example, if you look at the Belgian team, Leclerc just did his best. He finished in the 5th place, but Lars Krapps and Alex Egaard finished in 114th and 124th this morning on more than 7 minutes, both of them. So I think it's pretty clear they aren't, outside of the 100 best climbers in this race. I think they're right up there. They're certainly in the best 30 looking at this stage. So they definitely saved a little bit on that climb. And whether you go full gas or you just go a little bit below your threshold, that really makes a big difference in a time trial like that, because you can completely empty yourself in half an hour, but you can also just hold back a little bit and almost be entirely fresh at the end of that. It's an effort that is definitely manageable if you don't go as hard as you can.
Yeah, totally. I agree, and we're seeing the result of that. I'm glad you pointed out where they were in the time trial. 15.4 k's to go on this flat approach to the climb. It won't be long before the road starts to kick up. In fact, the climb itself 9.8 k's, just shy of 10 at 7%, a pretty even gradient all the way up. Then there's a short descent just off the top, a very short one, and then it's gently rolling to the finish line in Val Cenis. A ripple of applause from the crowd. Still Belgium. They've not missed a beat today. This is an impressive ride, it really is. And they just sat at the back there is Joseph Blackmore. Some demon descending from him earlier on. I think Golica, has been caught now again. We didn't actually see him get taken back, but we're now on to the climb very shortly of Val Cenis, the Col de Val Mont Cenis. A far nicer day than was originally anticipated. A wet start saw the riders transported to the Depart Real. It was going to be the best part of a 15k descent, neutralized, but given that the rain was falling, that was going to be of use to nobody. In fact, it would have been quite dangerous. I think the sensible thing was done for the riders here today, taken to the start line in the cars, and then they had 2.5 k's of neutral, a slight detour, as Jens was talking about earlier on, but here we are on to the final climb of the day, the Col du Mont Cenis. It is saying they're a Cat 1. I won't argue with that, although in the road book it's got Cat 2. We shall see. But now it is Switzerland that are taking things up at the front. The job of the Belgian there, Segart and Krapps has done, although Anders Foldegger sitting in third wheel there. Now Switzerland taking things up, not the team I thought that would be taking up so early. So good job done there by Segart.
Yeah, he's emptied himself going into the final climb. At Switzerland, yeah, we did see Jan Gisling get dropped, but he was not necessarily dropped on pure pace uphill. So maybe he's got some more left in the legs. He did come back fairly comfortably, I would say, in that group that we also saw with Fernando Tercero, for instance, who then got dropped a little bit later on. But they're setting the pace now. Clearly some confidence in Jon Christian at the moment.
Yeah, certainly looking very good. The job done today for the man from Lotto Destiny. Knocks it down onto a smaller gear. And then the racing has begun, and a tempo being set by Switzerland. So it's a pretty gradual climb. There's no super steep sections. It's even all the way to the top. And it's still fascinating, isn't it? The way that Pinzon was riding the Colombian. The fact we've got 3 Colombians in that move, but not their man that sits in 10th overall. I'm wondering if he was sick or something, because that is strange, especially given the size of this group. Okay, missing maybe an elite selection of 5 or 6, but missing such a sizable group, unless he just got caught the wrong side of the split, because the original separation went over the top of that first third category climb, and then it was on the technical descent and on the next flat section that the group then came back together, wasn't it? Although the acceleration of Riccitello did drag another little group clear, but the way we've got this selection, not necessarily just because of the climbing yet.
No, but I'm just looking at that group, and I think there's 3 Colombians at the front and 1 at the back, and there were only 3 riders listed. So I think that
maybe he is there, yeah.
Selection that we saw was not complete. That's what it looks like to me. I think there was also a German rider on the back there, which was also not listed. So that would mean that might be some riders that we hadn't got on the list who are still in this group. That's certainly what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I think you are quite right. The 2 Swiss riders in this group, Fabio Christian and Romain Dons. It is Dons who's doing the riding at the moment. And we're just looking at the rider from Germany there. That is Ole Thiele. He's riding well. And the pace starting to rise now. Good bit of tempo riding here from Romain Dons. The shape of the peloton just thinning out ever so slightly. And riders struggling to stay in contact now with 13.3 Ks to go. This is the way the climb will ride, all the way to the top with 5 Ks to go. But again, given what we know about this race, given who has been up there on the general classification so far, it's a bit of a surprise that to see Switzerland riding here, but clearly feeling good, and clearly Christian must be feeling good.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, we did see teams riding yesterday. For instance, the Netherlands rode quite a long way, and we didn't see any of the Dutch riders in the top 10 in the end of the stage. So it is, of course, possible that's a bit of overconfidence, but it does look like Christian has now just attacked off the front of the group, and he's only dragging 1 Colombian rider with him.
Well, Christian attacks, Colombia respond, and meanwhile Riccitello sits in the middle of the peloton and eyeing up the man just in front of him, Isaac Del Toro, who sits only 1 minute 11 seconds behind. He'll be keeping a big eye on him, that is for sure, as well as the man that sits second, the Italian David Piganzoli. Giulio Pellizzari is also in this group as well, in 5th place at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. But Christian has opened up a small gap. The Colombian that he was with has dropped back. The Austrian champion struggling again there, Alexander Hayek, as Dons now slips away. His job is done. And Christian slowly moves clear. There's the Italian contingent, all sticking together. Real discipline within the ranks of the Maglia Azzurra. Strong team riding from that squad. They've also got Alessandro Pinarello in that group as well. An interesting move here, 13.2 Ks to go.
Yeah, interesting, but I think there's just such a benefit to sitting in the wheels at this point. Yeah. You see the speed that the riders are going. It looks like it's pretty close to 30 kilometers an hour. And at that speed, it just makes such a difference to sit in the wheels versus being out on your own in front. But Christian clearly feels good. Maybe he's just going to ride everyone off his wheel like he's doing right now. But I do think we're going to see some moves from behind there. The real GC favourites that have crystallised over the last... well, yesterday and this morning's time trial, and Christian, he is up there, but he wasn't that great yesterday. Of course, did do pretty decent time trial this morning, still in 8th place, and he's in 6th place on the general classification. Early signs this morning, or well, this afternoon, start of the stage, he did get dropped for a little while, but he's up there now, he's attacking, so he must feel good.
Yep, he's a classy rider. Technically a stagiaire at the moment for the UAE Team Emirates squad. Normally rides for the Hagens Bermans Action team, but has signed a very long-term contract all the way through, wow, to the back end of 2028 with UAE Team Emirates. Another example of the trust signing these young riders. Won a stage of the Giro Next Generation, 7th overall there as well. An exceptionally gifted climber, also a good time trialist. And again, you get an indication, you're quite right, they're riding at around 30 k's an hour uphill here. And you can just tell by the gears they're using and the speed the road is moving. We're all familiar to that as bike riders. And Christian, well, is slowly but surely, incrementally, marginally moving clear now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think this sort of climb, if we saw it in the men's Tour de France, you wouldn't see such moves, because there would just be some control. There would be a climbing domestique who could be up there in the top 10 himself, who would be doing the pacing. But at this level of racing, that's not quite the case. The riders who are riding in support are not maybe as good as we see in the elite ranks. So that means it's just a bit more room for attacks to be made. Kirsten making use of that, but there are still riders that are close enough to make the jump. It's still quite a long way up the climb, because we've only done about 2 kilometers up this climb, and these were the easiest kilometers so far. No,
totally. Well, Jan Christian on the general classification sits inside the top 10. In fact, just double check the general classification for you. Yes, sits in 6th place at 3 minutes and 8 seconds, so no immediate threat. But just going back to your exceptionally valid point, Jens, about the fact you wouldn't see World Tour rider jumping clear on a climb like this. This is slightly different. When you look at his ability in the individual time trial as well, this is a classic climber rouleur sort of climb where you can lay down the power. It's a far more linear effort, isn't it? And he is doing a good job at the moment. So it's maybe he's looked at it. It's the sort of climb that suits the way that he climbs. Not quite as steep. We can really lay down the power and get into full TT mode.
Yeah, maybe that's the idea. Maybe he just has good legs today. That might also be possible. He's certainly going, and it's 15 seconds already, which is a decent amount. But again, what I just said, Lars Kaps, he's not a pure climber. He's more of a punchy hills classic sort of type. So it's really solid rider, but not someone who you really want to be following, setting the pace on this sort of 10-kilometer climb in the Alps. So we'll just have to wait for probably those steeper portions. You see the speed, it's already slowing down. So we're getting into those steeper parts of the climb where the actual GC favorites can start to attack.
Well, ideal situation still now for the man that leads this race. Second on the Col de la Loze yesterday, first in stage 7A this morning, the 11.1 kilometer individual time trial. That man is Mathieu Riccitello. Sat third or fourth wheel there in the maillot jaune, in the yellow jersey, and meanwhile 15 seconds up the road, a man that sits in 6th place overall at 3 minutes and 8 seconds, so no threat at all to the general classification as he takes a feed from the side of the road, neatly taken, nice fluid pedaling style. And is Lars Kaps behind of Belgium. They're the team that have taken things up today. The only team really that's worked in unison, save for the French earlier on, when their team leader, Matthias Rondel, was caught the wrong side of the split with Mathieu Riccitello. And they briefly had to chase before Riccitello took things into his own hands and accelerated and shut the gap himself. This is a Santiago Umba of Colombia now starting to feel the pace and slowly dropping away.
Yeah, he's one of the slightly older under-23s, was touted as a real talent coming over from the juniors, but he hasn't quite fulfilled those promises. He was really seen as sort of the successor to Egan Bernal, but he hasn't quite shown it in the last couple of years, and here in this race it seems as well he's not the man to beat for Colombia. There's still 2 riders here at the front, and well, we expect that Pinzon is still in there given the situation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You see these riders who excel at junior levels, and despite the fact we're seeing riders mature more quickly, hitting the ground running at World Tour, straight out of the ranks of juniors. There is one constant. There are exceptions to rules, and there are a lot of riders who show a lot of promise, but then they almost plateau. And riders develop at different speeds as well. That although we're getting more and more out of endurance athletes because of our understanding of physiology, training, nutrition, rest, and all the rest of the elements that the component parts that make up what it is to be an endurance athlete, there are certain limitations, and one of those things is that the riders would develop, mature, go through puberty at different rates. And you see some riders exceptionally strong as juniors and then drop off a little bit and don't quite fill that potential. And that's where it's massively important for management of the pro teams, the Conti teams of national federations, to make sure that these riders are looked after holistically across the board, because it is a complicated time of life, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly, and it looks like it's a complicated time at this stage for Jan Kisten. He's getting brought back by the pace of the Belgian team there. Lars Kaps pulling him back. It turns out that it wasn't the best attack in the world for Jan Kisten. He's maybe a bit too eager to show himself and starting right at the bottom of the climb. We're a couple of kilometers into the climb and he's already falling back to the peloton.
It's one thing I do like about the under-23 racing is that we still don't know a lot about these riders, and they don't know a lot about themselves. Many riders who ride in the Tour de l'Avenir for the first time, remember this lad here is only 19 years of age. He's signed through to 2028, but he's only 19. He doesn't really, he won't know yet fully how to race these climbs. So for a lot of the riders here, this is a voyage of discovery. And I think although it hasn't come to pass now, we've still got a fair bit of racing to go. Imagine if you hadn't have tried. This is what's important, isn't it? Riders try and fail. You try and fail. That's how you mature. That's how you develop as a young rider. It's getting out in the wind, making mistakes, but ultimately learning from them. And that's one of the fascinating things. These aren't the finished articles, are they? Though many are already signed to long-term contracts, they are still learning their trade here. And for many, riding in the high Alps altitude is a steep, steep learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way generally to look at these young riders is you don't look at their consistency. You just look at the peaks, because that's their actual potential. And you know, Jan Kisten, he's had some incredible results at junior level last year. He won a stage in the Giro Next Gen this year. He's obviously got the talent, but to make that consistency happen, it just takes time to develop that for most riders. And he's got the time. He's got that really long-term contract at UAE, and they're going to help him develop that consistency so that he can, you know, perform well across a 3-week tour, across all the classics that he's probably going to do. That's the next step in his development, and these sorts of failed attacks are definitely a part of that. Yeah, definitely. So chapeau. He's tried. And we've seen one rider try on a couple of occasions, Josh Goliker as well. Remember, Goliker only 19 years of age as well, but it is Lars Kaps at the moment who is setting the tempo on the front. Rides for the Soudal Quick-Step development team, 21 years of age. 7th overall in the Tour of Alsace, another very hilly race, and setting a good tempo on the front here. A lot of pressure on the shoulders of William Jr. at the surf, that is for sure. No other team in the last hour has done anything on the front at all. They don't really need to, because the Belgians are more than happy to do the riding here as we look towards the back, and some little gaps just starting to open up now. Some small fissures as the road gets higher. Remember, we get up to over 2,000 meters, so we're going to be in altitude territory here, as well as the air gets ever so slightly thinner. Archie Ryan also looking good out of the saddle there in the green jersey, seemingly having a far better day than yesterday. It looks like the Irishman is launching up on the inside, so Ryan now goes clear. Yeah, it's probably a slightly better moment a little bit further up the climb, and this is definitely going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. I think the pace is going up. Kaps just accelerating that last little bit. He won't last too much longer, and that means we'll have to see the fight between the GC guys themselves. No domestiques left, just a pure fight on the road. I think Kaps is already off the front, it looks like, and Leser is just looking around. Well, this attack on the inside, just look at that. The pace that's been set by Kaps has split the group, and that acceleration by Archie Ryan on the inside. Lost a lot of time yesterday, doesn't sit anywhere near the top 10. Probably lost the best part of 20 minutes yesterday, but clearly having a good day today. Was in the leading group on the climb up to about the halfway point, pulled the pin,
And Jens has been talking about the difficult year that this man has had. Spent several months off the bike. It's good to see him back, and clearly is having a far better day today and is happy to open up the taps. And already, since I've been chatting, has opened up a pretty decent lead here. So Archie Ryan is clear, the 21-year-old from Ireland, riding for the Jumbo Visma development team, is out in front, and somebody trying to get across the gap to him now.
Yeah, Ryan has got the advantage that he's not really a factor in the overall anymore. He's too far down for anyone to care about him. But he is being chased down. I think this is William Junior José who's trying to chase him down. He's actually opened up a gap, and it's the Colombian team with 2 riders at the front trying to chase him down. But that's not a positive for Archie Ryan, because if Leclerc gets across, he is dangerous for the overall, and that will put a target on his back as well.
Yeah, appears to me this is the play just for the stage. Obviously for Archie Ryan, shipped that time yesterday and did the sensible thing and just sort of rode in, finishing many minutes down, so focusing on opportunities today. But this man, Leclerc, has now gone clear. It's opened up a little bit of a gap behind. Not too much though. It is Colombia who are riding. Colombia have strength in depth as well. They're one of the few teams with 3, maybe even 4 riders in this front group. Meanwhile, Ryan, well, is continuing to open up the gap here. Looks like he's got the best part of 10, maybe 15 seconds on the group behind as the road continues to ride. A very even gradient here. And it's now Lars Krabs who set that pace earlier on, who's starting to suffer. But now we get a close study of the Irishman out in front. Be riding at the World Tour level next year and certainly looking full of flight today.
It's surprising to see that after such a bad day yesterday. He clearly wasn't feeling it on Col de la Loze, but today he's just found his legs again, because he's still gaining on Leclerc, who's also gaining on the group behind. So he's really going very fast, and whether that's a bit of overconfidence, going too fast right now, or if this is a play for the stage, then we'll just have to wait and see. But that group behind is also thinning out.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've got a couple of the Italians still in the mix there. Still that spotted jersey of Isaac del Toro of Mexico. Importantly for the United States of America, our race leader is there, Matthew Riccitello. Out of the saddle, watching, waiting, doesn't need to do too much at all, because it is the Colombian squad who are pulling back the danger man, Leclerc. Although, remember, he does sit 3 minutes and 45 seconds behind Matthew Riccitello. All about the stage win now. The further we get into this race, the deeper we get into this race, the less opportunity there is for any of the GC riders to take time out of the man in the yellow jersey. But this man has got different ideas on his mind. As you said, he's lost that time, and none of the GC riders need to worry about him. But, importantly, there is a Tour de l'Avenir stage win up for grabs here, Jens.
Yeah, absolutely, and this was clearly a plan for him to save some energy this morning, because he finished over 5 minutes down in the Mountain TT, which, given his level on this climb, is clearly less than he could actually do. So he saved some energy this morning, and he's putting it all on the line this afternoon on this climb right now.
Oh, it is the 2 Colombians on the front, as you can see. Del Toro just behind him. Then we've got a couple of the Italians. It looks like Pellizzari and Bianzoli, who are there as well. A couple of other riders just tucked in behind Matthew Riccitello, who looks calm and looks composed. But Ryan now starting to pull away from this group. The Frenchman just at the back of this group, Matthias Rondel, after suffering a little bit earlier on today. He looks okay, but is dangling as last man here. So Colombia now setting the pace as we get towards the top of the Col du Mont Cenis, the last categorized climb of the day today. This group fragmenting as we continue to winch away up these slopes. The even gradient, still 7% though, so it does pack a nasty bite, especially as we get higher and higher up the slopes of this climb, and we move up to around 2,000 meters above sea level, so well in to altitude here. And just trying to catch the number of the rider on at the back there. That looks like it's Pinarello who's now getting dropped. Alessandro Pinarello leaving 2 Italians in this front group.
Yeah, just 7.5 kilometers to go. That means 2.5 kilometers until the top of this climb, and Archie Ryan still has a decent gap over the rest of these riders, which means that he's got a good shot at winning the stage. Not quite sure what the exact gap is, but it's big enough. at this point, if there's no huge attacks from behind, that he's got a really good shot of making it over the top, and then either this group is going to work together, but more likely they're going to look at each other in 10 seconds, if that's correct. That's going to be difficult, but you know, he has to just go full gas now, put his head down and ride as fast as possible to the top of the climb and then towards the finish line.
Yep, it's saying 25 seconds now. Yeah, I thought that gap was incorrect. So 25 seconds, that is a good lead. Still 2.2 kilometers to the top of this climb. Very even gradient all the way up, so rider can get into that solid rhythm, and that is what Archie Ryan is doing now as a definitive attack up the inside. Nobody responded. I don't think anybody could, because the pace at that particular point was being set by Lars Krabs. He went off the top of that pace, and nobody tried to shut him down. But a real sharp acceleration, and the gap is widening. 30 seconds now for a flying Archie Ryan. 7.1 Ks to go. The man in second place, after us not spotting him earlier on, is indeed Andres Pinzon, or Edgar Pinzon, should I say, of Colombia. One of his teammates setting the tempo up this climb.
Yeah, we're getting to the point, that half-minute mark, where it's going to be difficult for one of the GC riders to jump across to Archie Ryan. They could still do it, but it's going to be a hard task to actually get across, because he's flying up this mountain right now. It's going to be interesting to see if we even still get any moves for the GC, because most of the riders seem to be content just to sit in and not risk anything on this penultimate day of the Tour de l'Avenir.
Well, that's the thing. The fact that he has shipped that time does play into his favour, as you were talking about behind, because most of these riders, rider 2, well, pretty much every single rider in this front group sits inside the top 10. There are 1 or 2 absentees at the moment. One rider who does look like he slipped away after that attack was in fact Jan Christian as well. But so interesting one. So Christian is there, Pellizzari is there, Rondel, Del Toro, Bianzoli, Riccitello is there. Le Cerf is there as well, but I think Timon Gratz is also slipping away, the man from the Netherlands too.
Yeah, the only 2 riders who are really not a factor in the GC are the 2 Norwegian riders. Sveistad and I think the other one is Gulset. They are in 12th and 13th on the general classification, over 4 minutes down. So they're gonna probably try to get back up into the top 10, and it might actually work. And of course we've got the Colombian rider here at the front. Not quite sure who it is, but he's setting the tempo for. Well, there we go. It's Pescador again, same as yesterday. He's doing a really long pull up this climb. All the other riders outside of the Norwegians and Pescador are in the top 10, I think. But he's now pulled off Pescador.
Yeah, Pescador has done his job. And good news for Archie Ryan as we look at Alessandro Pinarello now. There's a drop from this group. The fact that nobody immediately took the pace setting up does fall in the favour of the Irishman up in front. 6.4 kilometres to go to the end of the stage, but importantly 1,400 metres to the top of this climb. It's been a magnificent ride so far, and the gap has widened yet again. 45 seconds now for the flying Irishman as he continues to press on, getting towards the top of this climb. It opens up over the top. Remember, we ride on a plateau for 5Ks before the finish, but now it is Norway who have hit the front to try and bring back this man and try and open up things for the stage.
Yeah, Sveistad at the front working for Gulset, but it's looking really good for Archie Ryan at this point with just 6 kilometers to go. This final kilometer on the climb is not the steepest kilometer of this climb. It's going to be doable, I think, for him to get over the top with a decent gap, and if he manages that, then it depends on the situation behind, but no one's just going to easily ride across a gap of 20-25 seconds. So it's looking really good for the Irishman, because especially there is no incentive for these riders in the GC to chase him, because he's not up there. It would just be the stage win, but if you chase him down now, either you're going to be solo, which is still a tall ask, or you're going to bring other riders with you, which means you still don't have a chance for the stage. So Archie Ryan, he's looking really good for the stage win at the moment.
Yeah, it was a perfect time to go as Gulset continues to ride on the front, his teammate just behind. Sat on the wheel there, Riccitello watching everybody out of the saddle again, just eking out as much as he can. The gap has come down after that long turn on the front by the Norwegian, but you are quite right, everybody else will be looking at each other. And Del Toro, Rondel looking at Riccicello, and likewise. And they don't need to press on the pace. Riccitello has already got a stage win. He's in yellow. Del Toro has already got a stage win. He might be thinking about the mountains points as well here to secure another jersey as Archie Ryan takes a sip from his bidon. Apologies for the slight little bit of picture pixelation here. We are running the entire race on the 4G network, and it is wonderful to have seen the race from start to finish. And those of you that have been with us since Brittany, all the way through in a southeastern direction through France into the Savoie region. There's a big attack on the left-hand side. This is Italy. This is now Pellizzari who now attacks.
Yeah, Pellizzari making his move just before the top of the climb. There's only a couple hundred meters to go on this climb anymore, but he is a dangerous one on the GC. He's only 2 minutes and 25 seconds back, which is 15 seconds behind Rondel, and still over a minute to Del Toro. But they can't just let this go. They have to respond in some way, but at the moment it's just still Svestad on the front, but that pace is not enough to close down Pellizzari at the speed he's going.
Yeah, Pellizzari looking good, 19 years of age as well, rides for the Green Project Bardiani CSF team, a team that's been around for a long time. He's a good climber. He's won a race earlier on this year, won several actually, a couple of stages of the Carpathian race as well, but he's closing the gap slowly on the man in front, Archie Ryan, coming ever nearer towards the top of the climb. But this is a good move by the Italian, who is emphatically distanced the group that he's just left behind. Archie Ryan crests the top of the climb of Vallecini. He takes the mountains points, but won't be thinking about those. Finds another gear, churns a huge gear, and looks like it's the Mexican Del Toro now trying to come across the Italian. An action-packed finale here on stage 7B of the Tour de l'Avenir.
Yeah, now the general classification is in play. It's only 20 seconds between Ryan and Pellizzari, but Del Toro has made a move for the general classification behind. He might still get back for the stage win, but he will be thinking about the general classification. He's got maybe 10-15 seconds on the rest of that group, which means he will move into second place overall if that continues. He just has to put his head down, but this is a point where even Riccitello is coming under threat. He's not going to lose his lead if Del Toro racing the way he does right now, but he'll definitely chip some time.
But if Del Toro gets across to Pellizzari shouldn't ride, because Del Toro is only 7 seconds behind Piganzoli for second place overall. So this is going to be an interesting one to see this one, the way this pans out. So Del Toro has now latched on to the wheel of Pellizzari. But remember, he does pose a real threat to the second place on general classification of a teammate of the man that he's now joined. There is the lake that freezes over in the winter. But it is the Irishman, Archie Ryan, getting low on his bike as aero as possible as Del Toro now moves through to the front. He won't be bothered so much. Well, I'm sure he'd like another stage win, but I don't think he's going to get assistance from the man behind. This is ideal for Italy here.
Yeah, well, if Pellizzari wants to put pressure on Riccitello, then they could work, but I don't think he's going to do it. I think this is too dangerous for Piganzoli's second place overall. It does look like one of the Norwegian riders is working as well as, well, there's another rider working there with Riccitello, so he's again quite lucky that some other riders are willing to work with him. But
I think it was Piganzoli. I think Piganzoli was doing a couple of turns on the front because Del Toro poses that threat to him. So he's got a teammate up the front in Pellizzari. As we look at the finish line here, our static cameras showing the empty road so far. Archie Ryan of Ireland is out in front at the moment. En tête, tout seul, as the French say. It is the passionate way to win a bike race. Sorry about the picture break-up here as we head towards the finish. Ryan takes another toot from his bidon, puts it back in the bottle cage, gets back on the hoods, fighting the pedals here, out of the saddle up this short rise. We don't know what the gap is to the group behind, but we know that Isaac Del Toro and Pellizzari are chasing him, and here they are. He looks over his shoulder. I do think he might be joined by the flying duo.
I think the gap is still there, but it's probably closing. Del Toro flying behind. This is a short rise between 3 and 2 kilometers to go to the finish line. It's just, we're going to stay on this road until the finish. There's no real turns. There might be a few bends left and right, but there's nothing serious. It's just going to be a test of power and aerodynamics on the flat run into the finish.
It certainly is, and it's a long straight run there. Between kilometres 2 and 1, and then the final kilometre to the line, save for that little kink, it's essentially straight. So they will see the riders in front of them. That's horrible for a man out in front as well. But Isaac Del Toro, yesterday's winner, has distanced Riccitello. Remember, the man on the general classification in the white jersey, well, the polka dot jersey, should I say. There's not too many dots on that jersey. Sits at 1 minute and 12 seconds. And right now he's eating into the lead of Matthew Riccitello of the United States of America. Although there they are just behind. And the reason that the Italian sat on the wheel of the Mexicans not working is because Del Toro threatens the placing of David Piganzoli, who sits in that second place. So that could actually help. The flip side of that little standoff is the fact that it helps stymie the chase to this man out in front, Archie Ryan.
And there we've got an attack by Coulthard behind, but he's not getting across that gap, I don't think. Piganzoli is following him, and it looks like Riccitello is struggling to follow that pace. So Riccitello under real pressure at the moment with his yellow jersey under threat.
Yep, it certainly is. But what he has got, the gap is only a small one. Looks like Riccitello now has got back onto the wheel. Remember, we did identify this particular section as arguably the more dangerous. We know how well that Riccitello can climb. That is undoubted. He's proven that over the last couple of stages and, of course, earlier, well, the last couple of years of his career. That's why he rides for the Israel Premier Tech team. But on this flat, undulating, exposed section, that is where any individual rider, regardless of their physical prowess, once you're isolated, you come under threat. And he's under threat right now. Still got another stage to go. Another hilly stage tomorrow, but Archie Ryan looks over his shoulder. I'm sorry that the gap is stripped out. That just adds a little bit of drama to the proceedings here. But the road mercifully now dropping away. Gravity on the side of the Irishman as Del Toro continues the pursuit behind.
Yeah, but he is in the final kilometer and he's got 17 seconds over Del Toro and Pellizzari, so I think he's going to do it. There's not much that can go wrong anymore. Del Toro will continue to ride for that general classification, but Archie Ryan is on his way to a stage win.
Archie Ryan from Ireland, absolutely flying. He attacked with about 4 Ks to go to the top of the climb at Valsini. He's soloed to victory. This is absolutely fantastic. What a ride from Archie Ryan. 21 years of age, is moving up to the World Tour, and this is why. A superb ride. An emphatic attack that nobody could follow. Meanwhile, this battle, this pursuit behind is all about the minor GC placings. The man in the polka dot jersey, the winner of the stage yesterday, trying to move up into second place overall. But meanwhile, the man from Ireland, in the last couple of 100 metres of his ride today, is going to take a wonderfully well-deserved victory. A perfectly timed, strong attack from Ryan will see him take a stage of the Tour de l'Avenir. Finished in the top 10 of this beautiful race last year, but nobody's going to take it away from him. Archie Ryan cannot quite believe it. He glances round once more. He can savour the moment. Archie Ryan takes stage 7B of the Tour de l'Avenir for Ireland. What a beautiful win. Second place. Oh, it's going to be tight. Ooh, couldn't quite tell who got that one, whether that was going to be Pellizzari or Del Toro. But Del Toro, importantly, will be moving into seventh place, second place overall with that. The chase behind had come from William Junior Lecerf. That sort of sprint was why the Belgian team rode earlier on, safely in the group, maybe conceding 1 second or so, is your maillot jaune, Matthew Riccitello. Wow, what a thriller of a stage that was. 69.6 Ks of pure action.
Yes, 17 seconds in the end is the gap that Del Toro managed to eke out on the group with Riccitello and Piganzoli. So that does mean that he's going to move to within 1 minute of Riccitello ahead of the final stage. He's going to move into second. Put the stage win all for Archie Ryan.
Yeah, that was superb. One attack it took. He waited, he bided his time. I think that might be the cheer from the Irish team in the background. I'm sure I heard an Irish accent in the background there as these riders continue to finish here at beautiful, stunning Valsini, one of the most far-flung ski resorts in the French Alps, nearly a stone's throw from the Italian border. But a day for the Irish, a day for Archie Ryan, a tough day yesterday, a difficult season so far. Hasn't actually done that much racing at all, and that was a special win. Perfectly timed, but in the end, he was the strongest too. Not just about timing, you have to have the legs. You can time attacks to perfection, but you then have to have the legs at this level to carry it through to the finish. So that was such a well-deserved and strong victory by Ryan.
Yeah, he definitely hasn't had the best season. Just one race ahead of this Tour de l'Avenir after so many injury troubles. This is one of the groups coming in with Jan Christen there, Tijmen Gaat as well in that group. So that's the minor GC placings, although Christen still, of course, in that top 10. Gaat as well, by the way. But Archie Ryan here with the Irish team just partying. I think they're really happy with that victory.
Yeah, that was a brilliant, brilliant win. As you say, he's had a hard season. Yeah, I mean, that's quite incredible. I thought I was scrolling through the wrong page. It's just one single day race he had on the 13th of August. And now he wins a mountain stage in the Tour de l'Avenir. I think that just underlines the class of this rider. As a man from the Czech Republic crosses the line, respectable ride by him. He's in that earlier move. But a big, big day for Ireland. As the riders continue to finish now, this man could really sit up and savour that. He didn't need to power it all the way through to the line. He could sit up and savour the moment there, couldn't he? Which is wonderfully important given the troubles he's had this year.
Yeah, it's a nice change for someone who's used to doing GCs, always riding for the seconds. He just could sit up and enjoy the moment there, which I think we were slightly disappointed. He must have been disappointed as well to lose his chance for the GC yesterday. Really didn't perform, but I think he just he wasn't feeling it and decided to pull the plug out of that GC challenge and go for this stage, and it worked out perfectly.
It certainly did. 4th overall, remember, in the Tour de l'Avenir last year, after a packed season, and then injury plagued this. You can still see the strapping on his knee there, but clearly has been training hard, and quite often you can actually ride yourself into a race. You don't quite have the consistency, which we saw yesterday, but when he attacked, nobody could follow. And he did have the slight advantage of not being needed to follow. But I think had any other riders fancied their chance, they would have gone. But the attack was so violent, off an already hot pace, that nobody went with him. And actually, looking at this view here, it's reminiscent of parts of Ireland. Maybe not quite the same high mountain peaks, but this rolling, rocky terrain does remind me of parts of Ireland. But a special, special solo win there for him.
Yeah, Market Ride is coming in there with the green jersey of Anders Voldegger. But yeah, it's we'll just look at that GC challenge. It's this is very promising with Del Toro taking some seconds out of Riccitello. We're looking at a very exciting stage tomorrow with that Goldie Zone quite far out. We're probably not going to see too much of that, but that long descent and then those final two climbs, there's much. There's easily enough terrain for some changes to happen in that overall general classification, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen between those riders.
No, you're quite right. Just got the profile up again. We'll go through that in a moment as we look. Oh, we're going to have a chat with our stage winner, Archie Ryan.
Archie, difficult years for you today. It was a comeback, a revenge.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really tough race, actually. I've come into it pretty undercooked. It's my second race of the year. Only my first race was the weekend before this, and I had not just that, but I had a bad crash on stage 2. So I've just been coming back from that, and it's all thanks to the amazing staff in CI and Cycling Ireland, and the physios for getting me back in one piece, and the mechanics who were fixing my bike. Kevin McCambridge, my teammate, has been super domestic this whole race. He's unreal. He got me back in somewhat after the crash, and the next 2 days he's been on the front, putting me into pole position on the climb. And my other teammates, Oren, Dugan and Jamie Meehan, Paddy O'Loughlin, Dean Harvey, have been getting me bottles all race. So it's all thanks to them, and they're just amazing. I couldn't have done it without them.
The finish, it's incredible place. Did you take in the scenery?
Well, we've lost our pictures briefly. I'm not too sure if he did manage to take in the scenery, is probably the answer. And maybe he did, maybe the last few metres. But a lovely little conversation there from Archie Ryan.
I did it, honestly.
Thanks, Archie. Thanks.
Well, we can imagine what he said there. I think, let's say he liked the scenery, because it looks a little bit like parts of Ireland. Let's assume he said that. But no, a lovely nod to his team as well, Cycling Ireland. A small federation, but fully behind him. And he'll be joining his Irish teammate next year, his Irish countryman, Ben Healy, on the squad. He's got the look of a bit of a Ben Healy, save for the hair. Small, pugnacious, attacking sort of rider. And an incredible win. And the result of so much self-belief as well. Only one race, as he said, ahead of this, which makes that victory even more incredible. But never heard him talk before. Seems like a lovely lad. And there we go. Just confirmation of the stage there. Ryan takes the win ahead of Isaac Del Toro, who got the verdict there ahead of Giulio Pellizzari. William Junior Lesurf in fourth. Fernando Diego Pescador Castro there of Colombia in fifth. Johannes Kulset of Norway in sixth. Seventh, Edgar Pinzon Villalba of Colombia. Then Piganzoli David of Italy. Matthew Riccitello, should I say, there in ninth place, still securing another day in the Maillot Jaune. But his lead would have been cut by 17 seconds, as you were just saying, Jens. And it does set things up nicely for the final stage tomorrow, which is not going to be easy. I'm not going to say Riccitello is going to have a sleepless night, but the worrying thing for me was the lack of teammates he had around him. But we'll see. Maybe they'll galvanise tomorrow as we look at what happened earlier on. It was a wet start. Only a short stage today, 69.6 Ks, and that, remember, came off the back of an individual time trial this morning, a hill climb time trial. Archie Ryan was the catalyst for the first break to go clear, or one of the catalysts, should I say, on the third category climb of the Monte d'Orel. Points over the top actually taken by the Colombian, just ahead of Del Toro, who's the man in the mountain jersey. Now, this was a moment of real nerves for the Maillot Jaune. Matthew Riccitello missed the split, but did manage to get back on terms about 15 kilometres later. And it was this move that managed to drag himself and a couple of others, notably the Frenchman Mathis Rondel, who'd also missed the move as well. He managed to get himself back into contention after a nervous and energy-sapping chase. Coming into the final phase of the race, before the climb to Valseny, there were numerous attacks off the front. Josh Goliker, one of the most animated. Here he is, in a group that also contained Robin Dons of Switzerland. But it was Belgium who took things up. Alex Sigart and Lars Krabs doing a lot of work for William Junior Lesurf, the best placed Belgian in the Tour de l'Avenir. Goliker finally, after solo attack number 2, was caught back by the bunch. Well, no, he had another attack as well. So Goliker, determined to go clear, eventually was caught just before the foot of the final climb. Belgium still setting the tempo, a relentless tempo it was. It saw this group thin out considerably. Anders Foldager holding on for as long as he could, the man still in the green jersey. And then it was the turn of Jan Christian to go clear. The Swiss rider signed a long-term contract to the back end of 2028 with UAE Team Emirates, but it wasn't to be his day. He was soon reeled in by Lars Krabs, who did a long turn on the front, and then it was the turn of this man to go clear. After animating the race earlier on, accelerated up the inside, nobody could respond to the violent acceleration by Archie Ryan of Ireland, and it soon opened up a lead. Chasing behind were the Colombians, Gomez and Pescador doing some of the chasing. Then there was a very late attack by Giulio Pellizzari of Italy. He was joined shortly afterwards by the man in third place overall, Isaac Del Toro. But nobody was going to catch the Flying Irishman, despite the best efforts of the two chasers. They were to have left it just that little bit too late. Pellizzari eventually sat on the wheel of Del Toro as he posed too much of a threat. But in the end, this man could soak it up. He could savour the win. Archie Ryan taking stage 7B for Ireland. A close sprint for second place. Eventually went to the Mexican, He's building up a nice lead in the King of the Mountains classification as well. So second place to Mexico, third to Italy. Hopefully we'll get a look at the King of the general classification, shall I say. There's a definite reshuffle. And here it is, right on cue. Matthew Riccitello of the United States still leads this race, but now his lead has been cut to 54 seconds from Isaac Del Toro. Pianzoli there in third place.
Avec Michel Callot, le président de la Fédération française de cyclisme, président.
I'm here with the president of the French Cycling Federation.
Mondial du vélo avec cette formule, avec les équipes nationales.
Oui, c'est sûr, on le voit dans la course encore cet après-midi avec des coureurs de différentes nations qu'on attend peut-être moins, mais qui sont bien présents, qui sont en tête de course, qui gagnent. Et puis avec cette magie quand même de gagner sous son maillot national.
There's something magical about winning in your national jersey. It's a different mentality to competing. It's a celebration of international cycling. To have it in France. I hope they continue to animate the race in the way that they're doing it.
Et présent, Baptiste Rondel est dans le coup pour le classement général.
Oui, il s'est encore très bien comporté aujourd'hui, il maintient sa place. Et
Rondel, Rondel is still up there overall.
Très belle satisfaction de voir un coureur dans le top 5 du Tour de l'Avenir parce que
I'm really happy to see a French rider in the top 5 of the Tour de l'Avenir. He's doing really well in his age category. He's still very young.
Comme il le fait là, je pense que c'est un très bon signal pour la suite de sa carrière.
I think it's a really good signal for the rest of that young rider's career. He's talking about Matthias Rondel. So we head into the final stage of the Tour de l'Avenir tomorrow. It's been an absolute pleasure having your company. The clouds parted for a spectacular finish today. We feel the clouds may be rolling in for tomorrow's stage. An absolute epic finale to the Tour de l'Avenir. Stage 8 takes us over the mighty Col de la Madeleine, and then the highest point of this year's race, the 59th edition of the race that started way back in 1961. We go over the Col d'Izarin before the plummet down into the valley and over a duo of climbs that will crown the winner, the first of which is the Monte du Villaret, and then the finish of the first category ascent of Sainte-Foy d'Arentez. And there, the winner of the Tour de l'Avenir will be crowned. But right now, it looks like we might be having a conversation with the man in second place overall.
Isaac, you take like few seconds for the general classification.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Julio attacks, and I don't try to pull all the group, and I try to attack to take him. But later I know he don't pull me because Pianzoli is in the back. But yeah, I try to go full, but the airline guy, it's more strong than me. It's okay. To be honest, I am out today, but let's see tomorrow what happens.
Tomorrow, you think you can win the Tour? Yellow jersey for you tomorrow?
I don't know, to be honest. It's difficult. And the other guys are very strong, and well, I tried to be intelligent again, but let's see tomorrow.
Thank you.
A nod to his own intelligence there, which is right. I try to be intelligent. It's ridden. When you think about the way he rode yesterday, think about the way he rode today. Just waited, sat in the wheels, one big attack. Well, actually following the Italian Pellizzari. He is smart. He's super strong, but timing those attacks to perfection and clipping away. And now, okay, 56 seconds is still a fair distance, and he's not going to big himself up too much. But he poses a real threat, doesn't he? If he keeps riding like that.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a big threat for Riccitello. He's a very dangerous rider, given the fact that we've seen 2 mountain stages. He's been the best climber on both of those. But you'd think he's been waiting in the wheels for most of these climbing stages. But if we just go back to stage 4, he was the one who was attacking early. But we're going to hear from Riccitello now, I think.
Yeah, obviously super happy with the win this morning. I had a really good ride. Felt good, and yeah, this afternoon was pretty complicated just because I was a bit outnumbered in the final, and just had tired legs from. I got caught out a bit earlier on in the stage and had to do a bit too much work and had tired legs in the final from that. But I think, yeah, being able to limit the losses to just a couple seconds, whatever it was in the end 15, is good. And I think, yeah, looking forward to tomorrow.
One stage, one more day before victory in general classification?
One more day, yeah, but one more hard day. So, yeah, for sure I'll leave it all out there tomorrow and hopefully come away with the jersey, but it's definitely not finished yet.
Thank you.
Definitely not finished that. A pensive, serious-looking Matthew Riccitello as we look again at the winner of the stage. 2 hours, 5 minutes and 21 seconds. And it was the win for Archie Ryan ahead of Isaac Del Toro. Second time on the podium for the Mexican rider in this race, who now poses, I think, the most potent threat to the lead of Matthew Riccitello. There's the GC. Riccitello leads, heading into the final stage, ahead of Del Toro, Piganzoni, Pellizzari, Rondel, the Surf, Pinson, Villalba, and Coulthard. This will be the abiding memory for us today, the sign of a redemptive ride, a comeback ride for Archie Ryan of Ireland, and look at what that means to him. Absolutely superb stuff. That's why we love our bike racing. Moments like that will live on in the memory for a very long time. Well, thanks again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Do not miss the final stage tomorrow. We're on slightly earlier, so check your local listings for that. But for now, from me, Matt Stevens, and from Jens Decker, it's goodbye.